Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast, Quantum Leap After Show. I'm Albie, and as always, with me is Hayden.
Great honkers. No, get your mind out of the gutter. This was a wild goose chase. And also joining us, we had to get a Matt Dale to help us, but we ordered from Wish, so we've got Brian Green.
Yeah, the Indiana Jones reference is enough. Made me love this episode. And here we have Christina from Project Quantum Leap, the podcast.
Hello. Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's been a hot minute. Good episode though. Great episode.
Welcome back, Christina.
What were you last honest with, Christina? It was the Christmas one, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we can't have offended you too much because you came back.
John Irons is on assignment in New York City on Broadway. All right. This week, we are talking about the 10th episode of Season 2 of the new Quantum Leap. It's called The Family Treasure. The broadcast date was Tuesday, February 6th, 2024. It aired at 10 p.m. on NBC and next day on Peacock. Make sure you rewatch it a lot, like I do. The leap date was 1953. That's what we have right now, just the year. It was edited by Ian Mayberry, written by Shakina, directed by Jude Wang, and director of photography was Alicia Robbins. And we have a great show today. We have 4 guests. We have Wilder Yari, who played Dean. We have their sibling, who played Sarah, Hollie Bahar. And we have the great Shakina, who wrote this episode. And we have the director, Jude Wang. So I'm very excited about this show. It's going to be packed full of stuff, and we're going to be talking about it. But first,
and unfortunately for our listeners, it's going to be about 4 hours long again.
You never know.
No, it's not.
But Albie, just to get back to what you were saying about everyone watching the episode several times and streaming it several times, you're actually not kidding there, because Caitlin Bassett has done some interviews and has basically said that the renewal of Quantum Leap for Season 3 is somewhat up in the air. So we've been strongly suggesting that everyone who wants the show to continue, please write a letter to NBC and let them know your feelings. A physical letter is best, because with an email, all they can, like, it's very easy to ignore them, but with something physical there, they actually have to take notice of it. And we also have it on good authority that a letter basically represents 20,000 people in the minds of the producers and those higher up. So every letter that we get sent out there is essentially 20,000 more votes for Quantum Leap to stay on for Quantum Leap to stay on our screens. And we waited long enough for it to come back. We definitely want to keep it there. Brian, you're our resident Matt Dale. So could you let us know where everyone should send their letters and emails if they want to off to?
Sure, on social media, just type in hashtag Save Quantum Leap and it should come up, or you can go to Al's Place and the link's right at the top.
When I was doing the Terra Nova podcast, when it was being canceled, everyone sent plastic dinosaurs, so they would be inundated with plastic dinosaurs. Is there anything we could send that's relatively cheap and cheap to ship, but would be annoying if they got maybe 10,000 of them in their office?
Well, have you got
Pucks.
those little patches still? Those Quantum Leap patches that you got?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I thought you had a bunch of Quantum Leap iron-on patches. You got them at a convention or something.
Oh, it's got to be something that everyone has access to, though.
Yeah, I thought you could get us access.
Here, order these $9.99 patches. Send them to NBC. That's not going to open the envelope. No, they need to be bulky and cheap. Think Dollar Tree, Dollar Store. What
even a letter itself is going to do something. We can remember, I think it was mid-season 3 of the original series, and the letter writing campaign saved the show after it was cancelled for the first time. I think it was Warren Littlefield. He even did the advertisement showing all the letters that he'd been sent, getting inundated by them, and he's like, all right, it's coming back. So,
love you, babe. Let's do lunch. Jerk. Recently, I've received a few letters from fans of Quantum Leap demanding that I move it back to its original Wednesday night time slot. Listen, I run this network. Nobody tells me what to do. You know what I have to say to the fans of Quantum Leap? You win. By popular demand, Quantum Leap leaps back home to Wednesday on NBC.
All right, everyone send NBC a letter. I'm going to send them an A for awesome because this episode was awesome. Brian, first impressions of The Family Treasure.
I loved it. I loved all the Indiana Jones references, as you can see. I like the story. I like there's a lot of leap to it. I even like the project stuff. You know, we finally got a little bit into the chip again and seeing some of the repercussions begin to start with that. And, you know, the Addison Tom story still, you know, I don't care. But everything else, I really enjoyed it. And I think it was a step up from the last few episodes.
Christina, first impressions of The Family Treasure.
I also really loved the Indiana Jones feel of this episode. I know there've been a couple episodes that kind of had it, but this was like just smack dab in the middle of it. It was a great episode. I loved it.
Hayden, first impressions of The Family Treasure.
Well, first of all, they really missed some great comedic potential by not naming the episode The Family Jewels. But anyway, I'm so glad that I was right. The series does seem to be going on an upward trajectory. It was a much, much better episode than yesterday. Basically, everything that I bitched about, it seems like they listened, even though I know it was filmed months in advance. But it does feel like they listened. And yeah, I was very, very happy with what I saw.
I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was a great adventure. I thought it was a fun romp. And of course, there was important, poignant teaching moments in there. And I didn't think it was like shoved in. I thought it was like just like perfectly natural for the arc of these characters. And it was just all around fun and good and made me feel happy. So I really enjoyed it. Brian, we'll go back to you. What's it like in New Zealand this time of year?
Actually, I'm in the Amazon. You know, a lot of packages here, so it's yeah, is what it is.
All right, now
See, that could have been a good opening. See, that could have been a good opening line for you, Brian. You need to think about these things a little bit in advance.
I think of nothing. So, Christina, what did you think about the whole non-binary subplot of this episode?
I actually wrote down quite a bit on that one. I really...
Yes, speak. That means I don't have to as much.
I really loved how Ben kind of explained to Dean the whole concept of non-binary, and just, it, like you said, it wasn't in your face like, hey, we're going to drill this and shove this down your throat. It was a very nice teaching moment, and it's a conversation a lot of us can probably have in real life with people we know and love. And I really liked how accepting Sarah was. She was a little confused, but you can see that love was there, and she was just like, are you still my sister? You know, kind of thing. But it's like, no, I'm your sibling. And it's like, okay, you know, I love you. But, you know, a lot of people don't get that. And in the 50s, I mean, come on. This was great. I loved how this just went. And, you know, in life, it could go a million different ways. And I liked the fact that they showed a very good, teachable, wonderful moment between these siblings.
Yeah. Look, I totally understand why they did it, and I thought it came across very well. I do wonder, though, what do you prefer? Do you prefer a situation like what they did when Ian was introduced, where they were just there? They were not obviously non-binary, but they were just living their life. They didn't need to, you know, make any huge attention to it or to have a huge moment just because they are non-binary? Or do you prefer it when they do put it front and center and have a moment like that? Because I tend to think in today's day and age, it probably should be treated more like they did with Ian, where, yeah, these people exist. They're there. They're living their lives. Why are we making a big deal out of it? That's just something that crossed my mind.
Yeah. And I do agree with that. For Ian's character, they are who they are. They've gone through their struggles. Dean still kind of needs that guidance because, in the 50s, they just don't have that terminology really. And, there's still people in today's world that need to hear it, in my opinion. So having a character that's starting their journey, I think, would be a reason to have something like that in a show. But like for someone like Ian, they're there. That's who they are. They already know who they are. We already know and love and accept them. They're not still trying to figure it out. If that makes sense.
I gotta agree with that. I liked how they introduced Ian, and normally I would like it if, they just existed as they are without further explanation. But even in the background of the fandom, there's some people that just do not understand what that is and how it works. So I think this episode, in the brief moments they talked about it, maybe help some people get what's going on and why that is. And hopefully, some people won't, but at least they gave it a shot. So I was happy with it in this case.
It was really nice seeing Ian's reaction while they were monitoring the scene as well. I thought that came across very nicely.
I like both. I like non-binary people just being there, and I like seeing the struggle and having it highlighted, because I think it was a very teachable moment. Because for me, myself, I even learned things that I didn't know about, like the bandages and the binding and stuff like that. Stuff I had to look up that I had never just encountered in my day-to-day life. And I was thinking of, Hayden, you and my mother both watch the original Quantum Leap, and they watch this show. And like for my mom, she was, born in the 30s of the 1900s. So this stuff was never commonplace knowledge. So even though she's loves and accepts Ian and Mason, there's still things that she might not understand about it. And I'm sure that reflects for a lot of viewers. And it's just a good teachable moment. And I think it came at a good time in the story, because you had already gotten to know them before they explained it. So it was like you already knew the character and cared for the character, so you were more sympathetic to their journey. So that was fun, and I'm sure we'll talk about more of that in a bit. But what did you think of just the treasure hunt adventures, the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Romancing the Stone, Goonies, that whole flavor of just a nice treasure hunt adventure?
Oh, I love a great adventure. This was my kind of episode. All the little references they put in there, from the skeleton popping out to the spider webs, the caves, going down the well and talking about the snakes, everything. Loved every second of it.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
I thought that the dad joke puns throughout the clues were really quite cute.
Yeah.
It's such a dad thing.
Yeah.
I got so deep into the Raiders of the Lost Ark parallels that when that water came rushing down, I thought it was going to be a huge boulder that they had to run away from.
Now, I got to say, he says it's like the dam's like a mile from the church, but nearly instantly that water came rushing around. So a little...
The Force should have killed them.
Yeah. Exactly.
It would be interesting to see a fluid simulation or watch a documentary on that. I'm sure they did the best they could in the time they had. It did seem a little less than I thought was coming. I thought the whole town would be underwater. That's what I saw. But then I think it was Ben that mentioned something about some kind of I don't know what it was called, but some kind of water exhaust vent that they could
spillway,
divert water. Spillway. Okay, so yeah. I don't know anything about spillways, so maybe that's just to relieve a little pressure, so it wasn't so bad. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I think that's probably that.
I know they had a very short turnaround time from when they filmed this episode to getting the special effects out there, so I think they did pretty good, considering.
I did think Why didn't you just step to the side? That waterway didn't seem very wide.
Yeah, I think it was like they had a smaller dump tank probably than they had in mind when they wrote it. Like they're like huge metal dumpsters or shipping containers, depending on how much water they can get. But for a TV show, I think, but I think part of it was, I was thinking Doctor Who, and I was thinking that episode where the whole city was underwater because of the dam. And so I was expecting something like that. So it just didn't live up to my preconceived notions of what was going to happen. But I think it was a fun adventure, and I like that it matched up to what Dean had just made up for the booby trap curse thing.
Yeah, that was funny. But as soon as they said it, you knew it was going to be coming at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Just like as soon as we saw the lawyer at the start and the guy who introduced them when they got to the place in Mexico, you just knew they were going to be involved in it somehow. There weren't enough antagonists at that stage, so you knew that at least one of them was probably going to have to be a bad guy. And obviously both ended up being that way. So the only thing that I didn't like was that I found it quite predictable. I even predicted the part at the end that the treasure would have been at home all along. So it does seem like they're using some very tried and true tropes. But having said that, it was still great to watch.
It's fun. I thought like 2 minutes in, when you see the lawyer looking at the map with them, I'm like, the lawyer's looking at the treasure map, knows how much it's worth. He's going to show back up in this episode, no doubt. 100%.
Speaking of the map, it's good that they remember that Ben does have a photographic memory and that he was able to recreate the map. But it does make me think, the project records everything. Couldn't they just bring up a still of a picture that they would have taken of the map while they were monitoring the situation at the start of the leap? That would have been really cool to see
Good
some
point.
more of what's going on at the project affecting what's going on at the leap.
That is a good point.
That's something that I've been a little critical about during this new version of the series, because they've got so much more opportunity now to combine the present/future side of things with the leap, and it hasn't felt like they've meshed very well. So just doing little things like that, I think, really could help it to mesh better. But having said that, it made perfect sense that Ben would be able to recreate it anyway. I just thought I'd prefer to rely on an actual picture. That's just my thought.
Yeah,
to extend that just a little bit, Addison is a hologram. She could maybe look through the rocks and see what's back there. It might be dark, so maybe she can't see very far, but she could walk and find the exit, and she could go ahead and, we've seen that before in a couple things.
Well, she did find the exit, didn't she?
Well, she did. And finally in the end.
We didn't see her walk through it, but we did see her go off screen and find it.
Yeah,
So.
she doesn't walk through anything. They really need to step that up just a more. I don't even think we saw a hologram fade in this one.
I think the rocks were set up in the cave to look almost like, cartoon rocks that are going to be moved or somebody's going to come busting through. Right. But yeah, I immediately thought, Addison's going to walk through the rocks, find the right way to go or something like that. But I'm thinking it might have been in the original script, but just the short turnaround production time they might have had to make some last minute changes. And that might have been one of them, because that's definitely a Quantum Leap thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was cute, the Ben and Addison movie connections that they always do. Look for the rock that looks like it's got no purpose being there at all. Shawshank Redemption. You nerd.
I think the Shawshank part was a very important part of this episode. And you mentioned it, and it is funny, and it was a cool reference, and it applied. And Addison's been struggling with the relationship with Tom and her relationship with Ben that she's been mourning, especially again since he's come back. And I think when she had that moment of the movie reference and the shared history and the Shawshank, that ignited something in her that she's missing with Tom. Her and Tom, as far as I can see, don't have that. So I think that helped her decision later on in the episode, where she actually knew who she was meant to be with. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it does feel like we're heading towards the reconciliation of Ben and Addison, and where they will probably end up back together by the end of the series, because we saw Addison and Tom break up at the end of the episode, and for very fair reasons, even though Tom would look quite pissed off about it. And I wonder if he's going to be trying to exact some revenge later, or if that's something Nostradamus might see in the future. But also, Ben, at the end of the episode, writes the letter to Hannah and does the Back to the Future thing, saying, don't post this till 1970 and never talk to me about it again. Just make sure it's done. But if that does help, Hannah will most likely stay with Josh, and that leaves Ben and Addison both single and probably ready to, recommit to each other. So it does feel like those threads are starting to, get tied up again.
The Doc Brown letter was probably one of my favorite little moments of the show. I think they did it in Timeless, if you remember, if you've seen Timeless. The same thing kind of happened toward the end of that series with the Doc Brown letter, but it just makes sense. I mean, if you're in the past, that means you have more time to warn people of impending doom. And, and Ben had a decision to make, and he made the right one, of course, because he's a good guy and genuine and kind. So of course he's going to try to save Hannah's husband's life and the father of Hannah's son or somebody's son. But I think he did the right thing doing the letter. Will she get the letter? That's the mystery, and we won't know until we see the next episode.
Interestingly, not surprisingly, there has been a lot of debate online as to whether Hannah's son, what was his name again?
Jeffrey.
Thank you. Whether Jeffrey actually is Ben's son or not. And a lot of them, like us, were trying to work out if the mathematics lines up and pointing out that it doesn't quite. But don't forget, this is a time travel show. I could actually see it being that Ben leaps to 7 years and 9 months before the date of the previous episode. And that could be even when, what was his name, Jeremy?
Jeffrey,
thank you. That could even be when Jeff is conceived. It does seem to me like that's the sort of stunt you'd pull in a time travel show. So I can't see it not happening down the track. But someone said it appears that Ben is only reaching Hannah at a later stage in Hannah's life than he'd seen her before. And this would have been a good opportunity for them to prove that in a time travel show it doesn't need to be linear, because he did go back in time this time instead of forwards. So I haven't seen any reason to believe yet that he's not going to just keep seeing her later on in her life. But in a time travel show it doesn't have to be linear, and it would make perfect sense if they do reunite again, 7 years and 9 months before the leap date of what was the name of the last episode?
Jeffrey.
Off the cuff.
Thank you. I'm not doing very well off the cuff, am I? But I could totally see Ben leaping 7 years and 9 months before the date of off the cuff, and them reuniting then and conceiving Jeffrey. So yeah, I still think it's possible, and I'll be interested to see where they go with it.
That would be wild if your son's older than you.
Well, Sammy Joe is around about the same age as Sam.
That's wild.
I'm one of those people who think that we saw Jeffrey in this episode. I can't explain the name change, but that
wasn't even born yet.
That guy at the end of the episode that seemed to be in control of everything. What's his name?
Oh, Gideon.
Gideon Ridge, I think.
Yes, I think Gideon is Jeffrey. I kind of did the math. The actor who plays him. The actor who plays him is 55. So, I mean, he could be playing 64. And, those multi-billionaires have the age-extending, age-reducing drugs and therapies. So he totally could be Jeffrey.
Mm-hmm.
I got Lothos vibes from him. Actually. I think he might be in charge of the Evil Project. And maybe this parallel hybrid computer side of things, Lothos could have Gideon implanted in him.
Just makes me realize how much actually did happen in this episode. So I know we got a lot to talk about, but I want to get to one of the interviews. The first interview we have is with Hollie Bahar. She played Sarah in this episode, and it was really fun to get to talk to her. And
she's pretty.
I want to go to that interview now, but first, don't we have some bills to pay, Hayden?
Yes, we do. And what we were talking about with parallel hybrid computers, having parts of yourself implanted into the computer, well, Campakes has gotten involved in that as well. They've now uploaded all of their Campake flavors. All you need to do is sign up and link up your brainwaves, and at appropriate times during the day when you're hungry, they will send you a link to download your Campake flavor, and you don't even have to eat it. It just gets implanted directly into your brain, and it's absolutely delicious. It's the best drug you can imagine. So that's quantumleappodcast.com/Campakes. All you have to do is enter all your personal information, including your social security number, your birth date, your mother's maiden name, all your passwords, and they'll link up with you to Campakes, and you'll get every single Campake flavor you can imagine. You can even customize your own, which I think is really awesome.
Go to quantumleappodcast.com/Campakes, and you too can have Campakes downloaded into your brain. No need for shipping costs, no need for storage. And these memories last a lifetime. So once again, that's quantumleappodcast.com/Campakes. And now here is Hollie Bahar. Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast. I'm Albie, and we're here with Chris.
Hi.
And we are so fortunate to have with us from The Family Treasure, the 10th episode of Season 2 of Quantum Leap, Holly Bahar. How are you doing?
Hello, good. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really enjoyed this episode. We just got to see it, I think, yesterday, and it was down to the wire, and it was just an exciting episode. And I really want to talk about the whole episode, but before that, I want to get to know you a little bit. Can we talk about how you got into the industry? Like, what made you want to be an actor, director, producer?
Yeah,
writer?
gosh, I wish I had an exciting story. I'm from Peoria, Illinois. It's a great city. It is smack in the middle of Illinois, and I wouldn't say it's a super artsy city. So growing up, no one really tells you, like, you can go be an actor. That I kind of had to discover that on my own. I loved acting. I did theater since the time I was probably like 8 or 9. And then as I got older, I was like 17, everyone's deciding, where they're going to go to college, what they want to do. And I just I didn't want to do anything else. And I was like, can I do this? Like, can I make a career out of this? And my parents are amazing, super supportive, and were like, yes, you should absolutely try. But yeah, it's not like LA when you grow up here, and that's a very known career. So I kind of had to discover that on my own and find my way to it by the time I graduated high school. And but yeah, my love for it comes from just a love of performing and all these different creative outlets, and acting was the main one that I chose.
Your Quantum Leap fan cred just went up by, multitudes because you're from Peoria, and there is an original series episode called Good Morning Peoria. So everybody was thinking of that as you said Peoria, just so you know.
Oh, amazing. I love it. Everyone always, whenever I say I'm from Peoria, they're like, why have I heard of that? And there was an old saying that used to be, if it plays in Peoria, it goes back to like vaudeville. Which is so funny that it's not a super artsy town now, but Peoria.
So what was that journey like from deciding to become a actor and actually moving out to LA and becoming an actor?
It was linear in my mind. I always knew that I wanted to come up and end up in LA. But I kind of was trying to find a middle ground with my parents. And, I come from a very traditional city where, you go to college, you get your 4 years in, get a degree. And so which I totally respect. I just wasn't really sure what the avenue was for an actor. So I briefly went to North Carolina, and that was when the Southeast, particularly Wilmington, North Carolina, was getting a bunch of tax incentives for film and television. So I was like, oh, I can go do this thing in a bit of a smaller pond and kind of just figure it out while I'm also going to college, and there are some acting opportunities here. So I only lived there for about a year because my heart was set on the West Coast. So I got some experience in North Carolina, went home, told my parents I was no longer going to go to college and I was going to go out to LA. So, and then I ended up here, and I've been here ever since.
I mean, that's brave. That's a really brave move.
The bravery of a 19, 20-year-old. I mean, I don't think I'm that brave now, but you're young and you're like, oh, nothing can go wrong. It's my
Right?
dream.
Right when you're 19, you think, yeah, I'm right about everything. It'll be fine.
Yeah,
But
thank God for
turns
that,
out
though.
yeah, but you were right. So
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm always right. No, thank God for that, because it got me out here and truly had no experience, no friends out here, no ties out here, didn't come out with an agent or a manager. And I just that blind faith of just I'll figure it out. And, it took me a decade, but we got here.
So Blind Faith is also the name of another Quantum Leap episode. You are on fire.
I wish this was on purpose and I just dropped these Easter eggs the whole time. Turns out I'm an absolute expert.
You are, yes.
Yes.
No, I wish I was that cool.
So what's that feeling like when you can call home and say, I'm going to be on NBC this Tuesday night. Make sure you watch it.
It's a great feeling. Honestly, it is like I said, it's been over a decade in the making of trying to work consistently as an actor. And the last few years have been great, but every time you get to call home, especially to a family who's doesn't live out here and is not as immersed in the industry as I am. You hear so many crazy stories when you live out here day to day, but calling home and telling them that I booked a job is their excitement fuels me for so long. They're so proud, and I'm always so proud to share things with them. So it's a fun phone call to make.
So what are some of the things that you got between moving to LA and Quantum Leap?
I mean, the first few years that I lived here, I wasn't totally pursuing. I was pursuing acting, but I really just focused on classes and learning what the heck I was doing. Still am learning what the heck I'm doing every single job. But yeah, my first TV job was in 2016, and it was one line on This Is Us. And my first ever job was I got to hang out with Sterling K. Brown, Justin Hartley. I mean, I was having the time of my life. And they're just absolute class acts. So I was my bar for experience on set was already very high from that time. But, I was there for a couple hours, said my one line, went home. But it was amazing. So what else? I did an episode of Westworld, which was also just an unreal experience. Quite possibly one of my best days on a job. Just
absolutely love that show.
They shoot on film. They take their time. We move so fast in TV, and it works all these different sorts of muscles. But Westworld, we took 12 hours on one scene, and it was such a gift to, work with Ed Harris and just bounce off of him. And it was such a dream day and just a really special show to work on, because I love that genre too. Anything sci-fi, otherworldly, which is why Quantum Leap is fun too.
When I first saw that Mexican town in this episode, I was thinking Westworld. I think they used it on Westworld. I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure they did. We were looking when we were sitting there on the ranch. We were like looking up what else had shot there, and Westworld definitely had it. It looked familiar.
Yeah, immediately I recognized it.
Yeah, very familiar. And then I did a season of a show on Paramount Plus called Wolfpack with
Yes.
Sarah Michelle Gellar, which was really cool. We unfortunately just got canceled, but that was really, really fun.
You were playing the park ranger or something like that?
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember.
Prisha,
Yeah.
Ranger Prisha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was fun. I got to like run around in the woods in Atlanta, and I was like constantly dirty or in a fire or yelling at someone. It was a lot of fun.
Very, very good character you had on Wolfpack, but very different from the character you played on Quantum Leap.
Very different. Yeah, very different presenting, but kind of similar women when you strip it back. People who like rules and they like things the way that they are, and very strong women, opinionated, so there are some similarities, but very on the surface different.
I have to ask, I don't know if you can see because our recording software might not show my whole shot, but I have a cardboard cutout of Sarah Michelle Gellar behind me.
I can't see it, but that's
okay.
amazing.
But because I'm a fan of Buffy and all that stuff. But being on the set with such a legend, what was that like? And did you learn anything from her?
Yes, she's a legend. She's an icon. All the things that you hope that Sarah Michelle Gellar is, she is. She was also an executive producer on the show, so she was in producer mode a lot of the time too, and it was so wonderful to watch her work. That woman knows what she wants. She knows how to ask for it in a respectful, direct way, and also crack a joke at the same time. She's very funny, very witty, really quick. And yes, I always felt like I was learning from her. Anytime I was in a scene with Sarah Michelle or Rodrigo Santoro, both of them who have been doing this for double, triple the amount of time I have, I was constantly trying to absorb everything that they were doing. And it would be as little as Sarah, even technical things. There was a scene where we're going up the stairs and Sarah turns to me and is like, hey, walk on the balls of your feet, just because that'll save sound in the edit. And it's going to save us having to do more and more takes because our feet are loud on these old wood stairs. And like, then we did it and it was perfectly quiet. And I was like, man, that's just like, and that's the tip of the iceberg, but she's such a veteran. Yeah, she's a powerhouse. I was so inspired by her, and watching her be a producer too. She was, we had a very diverse cast and crew, but she was still one of the women in a power position in a more male dominated producing team. And so it was really cool to like see her in her power and do her thing. And yeah, she's an icon. I was just always like, oh, I hope she likes me, like I just was nervous around her, but she's so cool.
I love hearing that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did you get the part of Sarah in Quantum Leap?
Well, do I have a story for you? I don't know how much you guys know or what Wilder has told you, but in the span of a few days, so I had taped on, I think like it was a Sunday night, turned it into my agent on Monday morning. By Monday, 5:00, I had booked the role. And originally I had booked, there was another sister that was supposed to be a part of this family. And I was her. And she was like very bookish, kind, sweet, kind of leading this adventure. She was the one that really wanted to go follow in her dad's footsteps and really kind of the sweet mediator of all the siblings. And so yeah, found out that Monday night and then went to a fitting and a photo shoot the next day. And by Wednesday evening, so we had done a family photo shoot, and I met everyone else that we're going to be working with. And there was another actress, Nadia, who was originally supposed to play Sarah, and she was wonderful. but she ended up getting really sick, and I didn't quite know how sick when I left the photo shoot, and I get a call at like 9 p.m. the night before I have a 7 a.m. call of my first day on this job. And it is Martin, the showrunner. And as a guest star, I'm like, oh my God. Oh no. Why is the showrunner calling me? I'm getting fired right now. And I don't know why. I don't know what I did. We haven't even shot anything, but I'm getting fired. That is not a normal call for, you know, a one episode guest star. So I was, I can't cuss on this, I'm guessing, but I was sweating it. And he says, hey, so we have a situation. Well, the other actress is too sick to do this job, and it's, you know, she understands that, we understand that, but it is the 11th hour, and instead of putting someone in her role, we're giving it to you. And I was like, oh my gosh, amazing, thank you. You know, I was a little shell-shocked because it was so, I had already just barely learned this other character because, you know, I got the sides on Sunday and it's Wednesday, and I still hadn't seen the full script. But yeah, so and they were so nice about it. They were like, we trust you, we saw your tape, you're gonna do great. And everyone knows the situation that we've just thrown a completely new character on you the night before a shoot, so everyone will be there to kind of support you through it. And I mean, what are you gonna say? Of course, I'm like, yeah, sure, of course.
Yeah, right.
This is where I tried to trust a decade of training to kick in, because I was like, oh shoot, I am gonna have to fly by the seat of my pants here. And then Jude, the director, called me right after that. She is such a gift. Also such a luxury to be able to talk to the director before you do any show, but again, one like Quantum Leap that moves so fast. We shot so much in 7-8 days. And she was like, welcome to TV. What can I say? And I was like, yep, here we go. So I got some new sides maybe at like 10 p.m. Still hadn't seen the full script. And I'm like, pretty much for the next week, I'm learning the next day's work the night before or the morning of, which is really unlike me. I'm like a binder, highlighter, tabbed actor, and this was like completely, I wasn't able to do that. So that's how I arrived to Sarah.
Oh, wow.
Flying by the seat of my pants.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, it, like I said, I had to trust myself, but honestly, I looked to Jude, the director, and Shakina and Adrita, the writers, and Wilder and Ray, constantly looking for support and guidance and direction, because we're going so fast and I don't even know who this character is yet, and I'm finding her, you know, in the small moments I have in between shooting to like come up with who she is. But I was really trusting the people around me to help, you know, guide me into that.
What was the first day you shot? What part of the episode?
It was, we shot the end first. Gosh, let me try and think. We shot one of the final scenes first, where we are in, oh gosh, no, I actually don't remember what the very first scene we shot was. It might have been the reading of the will.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Don't quote me on that. I'm telling you, it was all a blur. But and then also on our first day, we did the flood. So,
oh wow,
quite a way to be introduced to the show.
Right, jumping right in.
I wonder if that's because if you got washed away, then they could recast before they shot anything else.
They were like, yeah, let's just see how she does in the water, and then we'll really decide. Man, what a bonding experience with Ray and Wilder, because we were not ready for what that was about to be.
Yeah, that was an amazing scene. It must have been just insane. And I mean, you guys are getting hit with the water and you're running from the water. Can you tell us about sort of the logistics of all of that, if you recall? I know you said it's a
Yes.
blur. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that I remember very vividly. Yeah, so we're on the Universal lot and they have this really cool, I don't even know what to call it. It's picture like a really big rocky hill. It's not quite a mountain. And there's like a contraption up at the top of this hill that just lets loose like a dam, like a bunch of water. And we had to kind of run out into the middle of this, look up, see the water coming, and then run down and hide behind this boulder for protection. And we watched the stunt people do it, and they were laying behind the rock, and they were like, okay, Holly, Wilder, and Ray, look, this is how it's going to hit you. The water's going to gently cascade over you, and it's up to you to control whether it hits you or not. You know, you're going to have to do some acting, you know, scream, let it hit your face. And we were like, great, okay, this is going to be fun. We do it, and we're running down this hill. Also, I have to be the last one because my character would be. You know, she's not super agile, a little scared of everything. So I'm trusting Ray to have us leave at the right time. That was all on his cue, us running away from the water. So there were a couple takes where I was like, oh God, it's like literally hitting my heels. And I was like, Ray, you better go. But yeah, we get behind this rock expecting it to be kind of similar to the stunt rehearsal, and it completely enveloped us. There were no lines being said, and I don't even know if you could hear our screams. We were like fully drenched and like grabbing onto each other and screaming, and it worked because that's what it was supposed to be, but it was so freezing and so intense that I don't think any of us were ready. We came out of it like everyone was like, are you guys okay? I was like, I think so. I have to be. But yeah, it was wild. But everyone was safe, and the stunt team was amazing and making it look even better and walking us through it.
The scene was amazing because when that water comes down and it comes around the curve, it reminded me like something out of Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you guys, it comes together very nicely in the finished episode. So I hope, you know, that it was worth it for you. It was worth it for us. So
I'm glad. I can't wait to see how that part turned out in particular. But yeah, it was worth it. It was like such a great bonding experience on our first day when you have to play siblings with someone and you're just going through this really bizarre experience together. So it was worth it. It was honestly a good time.
Cool.
You and Wilder really did play that sibling dynamic perfectly, I think. Did the off-camera relationship seem to mirror that at all?
I would say so, for sure. Wilder and I bonded right off the bat. Just got along amazingly. I felt like I'd known them for years. It was so easy for us to act like siblings. We just had great friendship and chemistry, and we leaned into it really hard because what choice do you have? You have 8 days to like do your job. And so we were like, okay, we're siblings, you know, and really lean into the banter and the fighting and the touching and all of that. And that was something Jude really stressed to us too. Any moment you can find to create some sort of sibling habit or thing that you do to each other all the time, let's come up with those. So that was really helpful. But yeah, Wilder and I got along so well to the point where we were doing the reveal scene where they reveal their binder, and there were times I was not supposed to be crying or they were not supposed to be crying, but we would look at each other and be like, and I was like not supposed to have tears in my eyes at that moment, but we just totally hit it off. So yeah, I would say our friendship helped the sibling dynamic a lot.
That was an amazing scene. We had spoken to Wilder about it, but I wanted to get your point of view because not only do we have that reveal, which is, wow, what a reveal,
Yeah.
but the reaction that you had as a character being the straight-laced one. Now hearing the dynamic that you both had off camera, I curious to know where you pulled sort of, you had some disdain and some, I don't know if I'm asking the question right, but it was as much your moment as it was Wilder's moment in many ways, because then you had a revelation at the end of the scene. So
Right.
I want to know like how both of those things sort of played into each other.
I mean, that moment is so beautiful. Wilder gives so much in every scene and every moment. It was so easy to work with them. But I think from my character, Sarah's point of view, here's this person she loves so much, despite what you see on the surface, but who she just has struggled to understand her whole life, and also has felt very misunderstood and very, having to be a certain way. And I always felt like there was a part of Sarah, and I think we can all understand this as people, that it is so I envy those people who are fully themselves all the time, and that is so beautiful. And Sarah was never able to do that. She didn't have that luxury. She was a housewife in the 1950s. There are certain gender roles that were expected, and she had to stay pretty, keep a happy home, live with this husband that was really awful to her. And so there was also a lot of, I think, envy that not that Wilder's character had been struggling, but that they were so proud to be who they were. So it was a huge journey, I think, for Sarah, also coming to terms with understanding her sibling better and, understanding herself a little bit better too. But I have siblings. I'm one of 5, and I think it's so easy. I love them so much. It is so easy to tap into that feeling of like they could tell me anything and I would love them, even if I didn't understand it. So I tried to remember that human part of Sarah, even though she's comes off as really cold and not wanting to understand more. And, in the beginning, she's really resistant to try to understand Dean.
Yeah.
Combining the two characters or melding the two characters that like you replaced the role of and you added the two characters together, how did that change from what preparation you did before that to the final character? And were you able to put both of those like personalities in there, or did you just pick one or the other?
I think a lot of my original character, really, when things got split up and I was given the character of Sarah, that original character, the essence of who they were, really was given to Wilder. That adventurous spirit, the passion, the wanting to find the treasure, that was a lot of who that original character was. So I think I didn't take a lot of that with me to Sarah. Sarah felt like her own person entirely. I mean, there's similarities. They're all siblings. There's the humanity that links all of them. But Sarah, I really felt like I needed to start fresh. There is something about, I went from second sister to oldest sister. So there's something about an oldest sister. I have an older sister. I channeled her a lot in ways. She is very kind, and she is not like Sarah in a lot of ways. But yeah, there's a completely different essence to the oldest daughter in a family. And Sarah's really had kind of had an isolated experience in the family. So I started fresh with her.
Given a choice, were you happier to play Sarah, or did you like the other character better, or did you even have a preference?
I didn't That's a good question. I didn't get to live in the original character's shoes for very long. It was really the span of my audition and a day or two after that, which was really just like fittings and photo shoots. I was doing actor work on the side, but I really liked her. There was something very, very, and just very endearing and kind, and there's just a sweetness that I wanted her to have, and that's fun. That was fun for me. I normally play characters that are a little more reserved or closed off, or maybe Sarah leaning. But I will say at the end of the day, I think it was such a happy accident because I really like to play very complicated characters. I think it makes my job so much more interesting, and it's easy to look at a character who's kind of mean and nasty and be like, oh, that's the villain. But anyone in that position has a justification for the things they do and say and their experiences. So I think at the end of the day, Sarah was really fun and just like a complex challenge for me to make her this like whole woman who's also very hurt and scared of the world and the things that she doesn't understand. So I'm happy with the way things worked out.
I think it came across on camera, and I'd like to when I've seen the episode twice now, and I look at Sarah as a foil, but a loving foil. She's not a bad guy. She's she's part of the family, and she's team family, but she's the one with the differing point of view, and in many ways, she's as much of an outsider as Dean. And that's why I think that scene between them was so effective at the end. When with the reveal and everything, as I'd mentioned earlier. So good job.
Thank you.
You needed to hear that from me specifically, right? Good job.
No, you've seen it. I haven't. We were moving so fast. I think anyone in any job knows some days when they close their laptop at the end of the day, or they sign off at the end of the day, they're like, oh, I think that went well, or that presentation was great, or I bombed that. I felt like we were going so fast, and I was, so much was thrown at me. I felt like at the end of each day, I was like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what I'm doing. I hope I have stepped up to the plate in the way that they've asked me to. So that is nice to hear, because this was one of the jobs where I was like, I'm never fully sure that I did a great job, but this was one where I was like, we will see when we see. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Wilder and Ray could enjoy the adventure as they were going, even if they were in real life, like their characters also did. So was it more difficult for you when you kind of weren't supposed to be an adventurous character, and like if you were having fun, to suppress that?
Yeah, yes and no. I think we did manage to have so much fun just shooting this whole episode. I hope that everyone agrees. I'm pretty sure we all had a great time. I mean, we were doing crazy things. We were trekking through the desert. We were in caves, and some real, some fake, and getting drowned and just doing so much. So it was a lot of fun. But I think as Holly, there were times I was like, oh, I want to get in on the fun. But at the end of the day, it wasn't hard because, I set me aside and just, live in Sarah's shoes for a little bit. So, and, it's fun to come up with what someone like that might do in that situation, and how far back they're going to hang, and, is the dust going to bother them, or so that it was a fun challenge. But yeah, Sarah aside, I still managed to have a great time.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So what's it like working with Raymond Lee? Everybody we talk to says he's horrible, but did you have that experience? I'm only teasing.
Yeah. So the worst. I never want to see him again. No, I'm sure I'm going to be such a broken record. I've also seen some of the episodes of your podcast, and I am about to be a broken record. Every aspect of what Ray brings to the table is very, very impressive. He is wonderful. Everything that everyone says is very true. I was like constantly in awe of how he was able to show up, be a very talented actor, be so present, but also be so mindful of every single department and every person on that set. And it is the reason that the set is so happy and positive and flows the way that it does. Like, it is not an accident. It is because of the people that are leading the charge there, and Ray is one of those. But you know what? Someone in a position like his is so responsible for the tone sometimes of that day, and that, given the circumstances of everything we've talked about and the new role and all of the action we had to do, that could have been it already was difficult in a good way, challenging, but it could have been so unpleasant if he was unpleasant. And he was so wonderful and so patient. And yeah, like one day there was a lot of smoke, and the extras in the cantina were smoking cigars, and one of the background actors was having a bit of a hard time, I think, with the smoke. And Ray made sure to stop everything and made sure the medic came to check on him and got him outside for some fresh air. And that is just like, you have to be so capable to be able to be in your actor mode, but also be paying attention to all of that. So I was impressed by him at every turn.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. He's, and Caitlin, I mean, just, I got to set and I was like, is this every day? You guys are all like this happy to be here every day. It was really amazing.
Cool. That bar scene, I really liked your acting in the bar scene. There was, I think, 2 moments for me where your acting and your character were just like so real for me. I found myself like lost in it, and which is crazy for a TV show,
thanks.
1 episode. But one of the moments was after repeated watching and knowing Sarah's backstory with her husband and how she's unsatisfied in her relationship, and actually like being complimented by the bartender that is flirting with her and having that feeling again. What was that? What did you do to make that scene so real?
Well, Keon, the actor in the scene with me, you know, wonderful, also just very present and gave a lot of good improv. So that, you know, makes my job really easy. But, you know, Sarah's lonely. I think at the core of her life, she's lonely. She has a husband and children, but feels very alone a lot of the time. So, and, you know, like we talked about earlier, she's as much of an outsider in her own way as Dean is. And that's a very isolating experience. And that was the bright spot in her day. She had someone pay attention to her and really notice her, and she ate it up. You know, that's sometimes you need someone to tell you look pretty. And Sarah really needed that day. So yeah, it was that was nice for her.
Yeah, I always need that, so I understand that.
You look pretty today.
Oh, thank you. I was fishing.
You're welcome.
The other moment I loved from you was that the binding scene, and when you and Wilder were working together, and when Sarah was trying to really understand what Dean was saying, but it was all new to her. And like, what was going through your head, and how did you approach that scene?
Very delicately. That scene felt so collaborative, you know, between discussions with Wilder, with Shakina, with Jude and Adrita. You know, we all kind of came together and talked about what is going on here. It's a woman in the 1950s who just genuinely does not understand Wilder's character. I never wanted it to feel transphobic or anything. Even we were very careful to never dip our toes in that pool, because that's not what was going on, and that's not the story we're telling. It's just a woman who did not understand what that meant. And so, yeah, I approached it very delicately. And by the time we got there at that place in the story, they'd been through so much together. I think the least I could do or Sarah could do was try to understand. And she owed Wilder's character that, Dean that, and just a little bit of curiosity went a long way in remembering this is my sibling, and that is all that matters here. So yeah, we approached it very delicately and really I tried to come from a place of curiosity and discovery and just listening, which are not things Sarah had done previously.
I think that's finally, I'm able to put my finger on why that scene was so effective and affecting to me. You had people who didn't understand, but there wasn't this central feeling of rancor between the characters. There was always a willingness, but just maybe an obstacle to get around rather than a disdain. And I didn't understand why the scene was as effective to me personally as it was until this moment. So thank you for helping me clarify that in my head.
I'm glad it was effective and it felt the way that we meant it to. As an actor, that was a tightrope to walk to make sure it didn't come off any other way than just someone who doesn't understand that experience or what it means to be Dean. But I'm glad it resonated and was effective.
And just a question about like practicality in the adventurous scenes in Mexico and in the town. Wilder and Ray are wearing jeans, and your character is just like head to toe in
Skirt.
a dress and all fancy clothes. And what was that like, just getting around in that outfit?
It was surprisingly comfortable. I had a nice, loose, flowy skirt. My boots took some breaking in, but honestly, not bad. And there were times where we were all actually very hot because we were in the desert and we didn't have to act. We were just like sweating, and no, I was comfortable. The wardrobe team, I mean, not only did I have to pivot at the 11th hour, so did every other department that had anything to do with me. That costume we did not previously try on. I had never seen that before in my life. They took my sizes, they made it happen overnight. Same with hair and makeup. I sat down and told Katie, the makeup artist, I was like, so I'm Sarah now. She was like, okay, great. It like took a second to get everyone on board, but once they did, they're amazing. But yeah, no, my costume was actually very comfortable. No complaints.
Cool.
What was the interaction with Shakina like? And did she explain the script to you different than was written, like in more detail of Sarah's character?
Yeah, Shakina is amazing. She was such a gift to have on the set, but also this episode in particular, because who better to tell the story than someone that has lived it and understands it and can give color to an experience that I have not lived through. And so, yeah, there were a lot of moments where Shakina and I would step aside and talk about, how do we accomplish the things that we spoke about and make sure that Sarah's not just a spiteful brat, that there's a lack of education and knowledge and understanding in the 50s and in that time. But Shakina was very helpful in helping me color in the things that weren't on the page in terms of experiences that she'd been through or things that family members had said to her, or just looks that people would give. Any little things like that were really helpful. And we were like, I got to give it to Jude and the writers. Everyone was very collaborative and very malleable, as much as you can be on network TV, to be like, oh, that line, nope. everyone thinks that feels weird. Great, let's change it. There was so much changing, but I think it was all for the better. But yeah, Shakina was huge in that process to make this episode work.
It's amazing.
And working
Yeah.
with Jude, how is she as a director?
Oh, so much fun. I knew from the second Jude called me, which again, I've done, a handful of TV jobs now, and I have never had a director call me prior to a job, which on a film, yeah, you get the luxury of time, but never on network TV. And having her be able to text her and having her call us and giving me the heads up at how fast Quantum Leap moves was such a blessing. But yeah, I just kept telling Jude, I was like, thank you for even just taking the time to call all of us. It's huge. But she's so much fun. She is. I think what's fun about Jude is she's very collaborative, but you can also tell she's having fun. And we were always coming up with things, and she would tell us to goonie up or make it more like the Goonies. And I can't tell you how many times I heard goonie up, but we knew exactly what she meant. Heads closer together and the big eyes and all of that fun stuff. But she's a blast and so talented. Like she's the director, so I was always looking to her as my North Star to be like, what am I doing? Help. And she always took the time to give me really good actor notes. I think sometimes you don't always get an actor's director, and she is absolutely an actor's director. So A+.
Pacing, it was so fast on Quantum Leap. How did it differ from Wolfpack? And did it depend on like a network show versus a streaming show? Or is it just different per show?
Kind of different. It is different per show always. Quantum Leap moves quickly in all aspects in general in terms of the pace at which you're shooting. But also this episode in particular, we talked a lot about pacing our dialogue up to talk, more like we're in the 1950s and they're talking very fast and my character's always like this, and that clipped really quick. So Jude was always telling us to speak just a little bit faster. So everything felt very fast. And, if I compare that to, like I said, Westworld, where we had 12 hours for one scene, that was, just a completely different energy, and both good and fun, just very different. But Wolfpack was somewhere in the middle. It was a new show, first season, so there was definitely an energy of we gotta move, we have a lot to do, there's a lot to accomplish, everyone's still kind of finding their groove with each other since it was new. But at least my scenes never felt too rushed, I would say, on Wolfpack. It's a bit slower paced if we're comparing it to Quantum Leap, and a lot of my scenes that involved my character I was always asking like important questions and, where's so-and-so and how did they get there? So there was always a lot of time and space to ask those questions in the scenes that I was in. So it felt slower than Quantum Leap, but I think that's the best part about, one of the fun things about what we do is I never know what you're going to get till you start to get in there and feel the groove out with everyone. And it's different every time.
And I think it really helps for this episode because it's very action adventure. So maybe just that feeling of being on a nonstop train helps.
It has to move. Yeah.
I have to ask a silly question. I think I'm asking everybody on this episode. Did you end up with the key, the prop of the key?
Like in real life?
Yes.
Yeah, like, is it hanging around your neck right now?
Do you have the key?
Who told you? No.
No?
Oh, wait, sadly I don't. I don't know who has the key.
Okay, that's the mystery. Did you get to keep
did.
anything? Did you get to keep anything?
I didn't. I know Wilder got I think a piece of wardrobe, which was like worked out and that was really cool. But no, I didn't ask, and there was nothing nothing that I tried to steal. So I was like, as a guest star, I'm like, I'm not gonna rock the boat. Just gonna do my job. But one of my favorite scenes was with the key when I reach in the hole and scream at them. So I wish I would have gotten the key. But no, I don't know who has it.
Yeah, you're not wearing a string of pearls or anything.
No.
No key.
It was very Temple of Doom, that scene. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was fun to shoot. I would, each time we did it, despite my voice telling me not to, I would scream just a little bit longer to see how long they would scream with me. There was one time we went so long, and I was like, I know they're wondering what I'm doing, but I just stood there and screamed forever. But that was one of my favorite things to shoot. So the key would have been good memorabilia.
Yeah, well, we'll figure it out, Albie. That's the mystery of this show.
I know. We'll have to find out. Ask Jude; she might know.
All right.
Maybe she's next in the barrel. So,
Yes.
well, Holly, you've been so amazingly generous with your time. We don't like to overstay our welcome, so I just want to ask, in parting, are there any messages that you have for the Leapers out there who might be listening?
Oh, I hope you enjoy the episode. Keep watching the show. Keep supporting it. It's a group of incredible people, and I know they'd all be very grateful. But thanks for watching.
And thank you, Holly Bahar, for appearing with us here on the Quantum Leap podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And we're back. How about that, Holly? She was amazing. And if I can say, she's quite gorgeous. I was enamored with her. I think that's okay to say because in the interview, she did call me pretty. So I think it's okay.
Oh, that's cute.
It was amazing talking to her about working with Sarah Michelle Gellar on Wolfpack and learning from her and different things. And like, you know, I don't know if you know this, but I have Sarah Michelle Gellar cardboard cutout behind me. So I'm a fan. So it was cool to talk to somebody who actually worked with her, knows her, and friends with her. So besides that,
Yeah,
just,
but Albie, why is she holding up a knife like that just behind you? Like, I think you know,
Run!
you might not live to slay another day.
I'm not a vampire. I'm a vampire. That's different. All right. Yeah, so it was just a great conversation, and it was great getting the insight into the character and the thoughts during those pivotal scenes. I mean, just great to have her on. Thank you so much, Holly, for joining us. Christina, what did you think about Holly's character in this episode?
I thought she was kind of a snot at first. Didn't have the greatest impression. I was like, oh, okay, so she's like one of those sisters. I'm the best. Nobody else knows what the heck they're doing. I mean, I get it in her dynamic where she's the oldest. She's the one that took care of them. So she's going to be more, I don't want to say motherly, but she's going to be more the type of person, you're doing this wrong. You're doing this wrong. You're doing this wrong because she's already been through it. But I really warmed up to her probably about the time where she stuck her hand in the hole and like started screaming. I'm like, okay, you know what? She's hiding behind a facade here. Yeah. So by the end of the episode, I'm like, okay, I absolutely love her. And I think she's just been carrying a lot of weight on her shoulders. And that's kind of how it came out.
Yeah, I think that they really needed this trip to, you know, act as siblings and get to know each other as siblings and people instead of in their usual roles, which they have obviously grown up with. So I thought it was really cool to see.
Again, I thought that was sweet. I really did.
I'll agree with all that. You know, the dad was gone for a long time. He, at the end of his life, realized, you know, what he was missing. And he probably saw that with his own children and decided to put them together in a fun adventure like he did, except to bring them together instead of separate them. So I did like that.
One cool thing I liked in this episode, and I think for me, I'll probably remember this episode for the adventure part, but a lot of the emotion in this episode, besides that perfect scene between the two siblings, was Caitlin's character. When Addison, Allison, Augustine goes through what she's going through. And I've been very critical of Addison thus far this season. and not really understanding or being sympathetic to what she's going through. But I think I understood Addison so much more in this episode, because last episode I was quite confused what she was thinking, what she was going through, what she was doing. But now that I've seen this episode, it kind of like all fell into place. And I think just Caitlin's performance in this episode was amazing, especially towards the end with the breakup scene. Is that what we can call it? The breakup scene with Addison and Tom?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Certainly looked like a breakup.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that reminds me. What did you think of Jen's reaction to the them just going to get married that day? And she was trying to be a supportive friend, but knowing it was not a good idea.
Well, we've all been there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, we've seen train wrecks about to happen. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, you can't ever say anything because, you know, even if they do break up, a lot of the time they do get back together, and then, you know, you're in the shit for saying something bad. So, yeah, Jen did the right thing there. So did Ian.
They can't say anything? I think I was told 13 times on my wedding day, don't do it. Maybe that's an exception rather than the rule. I'm glad I didn't listen because I wouldn't have my daughter, but they were right. But I'm glad I didn't listen. So I'm glad that it's sad that they broke up, but I'm glad that they're not together anymore. I don't think they were right for each other. I like both of their characters, but I don't think they were meant to be. I don't think they were made for each other. I really don't.
The chemistry, I didn't feel any of it at any time.
But I think that's more the fault of the writers not giving them enough of that sort of loving sort of dialogue and chemistry to try and put in front of the screen, though. So I don't think we can blame the actors or blame the characters. I think it really is what they were given.
I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think they wrote it poorly. I think that's what they wrote because we as an audience, we as an audience should feel uncomfortable, should feel like they're not supposed to be together. Even though they're going through the motions and doing the things, I think we're supposed to feel, no, it's just not right. Because what if they did write it towards, they were great for each other and everything's great, but then she decides again to go back to Ben, and then we would feel betrayed again because we fell for them falling for each other. So this way we were all kept at arm's length with that relationship. So I don't think it was poor writing at all. I think it was excellent writing.
I do think that they need to build proper conflict, though. It's very hard to build conflict between characters and also conflict of feelings from the people who are watching it, unless they make the characters sympathetic and likable and making you, want to root for them in some ways. So I do think that they could have done a better job of it, but I do understand why they did it the way that they did.
I will disagree with you respectfully because they had a hard job. They had to make you love Tom. They had to keep you liking Addison, and they had to let you be involved in the relationship and not let you want them to be together, but without it being the obvious stereotypical, like movie where, okay, he's the jerk boyfriend. They're definitely not going to end up together. Cause Peter's character, Tom, was just a great guy and a kind person. And so there's nothing to dislike about him. So I think they were given a very difficult puzzle to weave together, and I think they did it perfectly. But I'm saying that now, but in the finale, they might end up together and married. I don't know.
I still think Tom's shady.
What was that, Christina? I didn't catch that.
I still think Tom's shady.
You think so?
I do too,
Yeah.
actually. And his reaction to the breakup, too, makes me think he's going to start trying to exact some revenge on the project. And remember, it's because of him that the project didn't get into any trouble when they did start up again. So he has a lot of pull. He could do some real damage.
I don't know. I mean, you ask somebody to marry him, they say yes, and all of a sudden the next day they're like, I don't think so. I might be a little pissed too for a couple of days. Hey,
I've been there.
Well, don't forget too. It seems like the main reason why he'd want to help out the project was because of Addison and his relationship with her. If he's not with her, then why is he bothering? That kind of
Because now he's mad.
there's that side of things too. Yeah, exactly. So he's mad now. So don't you think he might try and get them shut down?
We've seen it where like the jealous ex tries to sabotage the relationship. Yeah, we're shown that he finds a way to possibly bring Ben home. I'm sure he knew there was a possibility Addison would be like, yeah, but you know what? I still have feelings for Ben now that he's here. But now that she's literally put down the ban hammer, I don't know. He might go for some revenge and some sabotage. He might be working with Gideon.
Well, actually, now that you say that, I actually think it could be that maybe the government does shut down Project Quantum Leap and they have to do it in secret, but with Gideon's help. Because if they can privately fund it, then, especially with Gideon's help and with all their resources, maybe they have to deal with Gideon a lot more and with him up the top. And Gideon looks very shady, I'll give you that. I don't want to see things that he's going to try and get the project to do. But and we know that they wanted the data for a reason. We still don't know what. But if they're in charge because they're the ones making the payments, then, yeah, who knows what they might end up doing.
Is that older Jeffrey you're talking about?
I don't know.
Is that going to be his name? Older Jeffrey?
Old Jeffrey.
That's his name.
But speaking of this breakup scene, I think this was probably Peter's best work on the show. Because up until this point, he's just been the nice, kind guy, kind of boring, reliable. But he was really one note, like monotone. There was a little bit of character development when he was the hologram for Ben, and that was interesting and fun and awkward, but good at the same time because they were both good guys. I believe Tom's good. I think they're both good guys, and them obviously being obstacles to each other's happiness, but still dealing with it in a kind way. I enjoyed. But when I saw Tom lose his temper at the end of this, I think it was justified because I think he knew this whole relationship. As soon as he found out that they found Ben, I think he was waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I think besides Ben, the person that knows Addison the most would be Tom. And I think Tom knew in his heart that this was going to happen. And he was just waiting for it to happen the whole time. And proposing to her was kind of like a way of, are you a robot? Checking one way or the other, whether or not it's Ben or Tom that Addison loves, truly should be with, in her opinion.
Well, this is kind of the first time that we've seen Tom not being very stoic.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of feels like he's had a mask on for pretty much the entire season so far. And this is the first time we've kind of seen past it. And yeah, I agree with you, Christina. There's something shady about him. So, yeah.
We got to see a little bit more of his personality when he was talking about his wife in that episode earlier. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, very stoic. And, that's just why I haven't cared much about the storyline.
For me, I knew when Addison was going to not choose Tom I didn't know if she's choosing Ben yet, but I know she's not choosing Tom, is when she wasn't wearing her engagement ring in the imaging chamber. Because if it was a definite thing and she was okay and was going to tell Ben, she would have wore it. And when women are taking on and putting off their engagement ring, there's something wrong. And Ben would have noticed right away. Ben knew there was something on her mind, but, Addison wouldn't tell Ben. But the minute it wasn't on her finger, I knew.
Didn't even think about that. But yeah,
I don't usually
you're
look
right.
there.
I didn't check it either. Yeah.
I'm always doing a ring check.
Right?
But just excuse me. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to flirt with someone if I know they're not single. So I mean, I got to check. And if they don't have a ring, they might be single. So then I can go ahead and flirt.
That's
But why
nice.
waste your time if they're married?
I've noticed both being married and single. When I'm single, I have no one flirting with me or hitting on me. When I'm married, it's nonstop. So I don't know what to make of that.
It's that I don't want anything that no one else wants mentality.
Interesting. So I don't think Tom is the big bad of the season. I could see him, if he had to approve or deny the project going forward, having some, like, just cutting her off completely and just being non-feeling, maybe. But I don't think so. I think he's a good guy, and I think we'll see that by the end of the season. Now let's talk about Jeffrey. I mean, what's his name? Gideon. Gideon. That's not a real name. That's like a computer name. It's Jeffrey.
That's
so let's talk about his
fake.
character. I looked up the actor who plays Gideon, and it's James Frain, and I recognized him. I was like, I know this guy. Star Trek. He's on Star Trek Discovery. He plays Sarek. He was great at that role. So interesting that they chose him. What do you think he is? Who do you think he is? What's that all about? This chip? He's in control of the government?
Well, I don't think he's Jeffrey because his company and therefore he existed long before Jeffrey did. Remember, Jeffrey died in the original history along with the rest of his family.
But you think so?
Yeah. Remember in off the cuff that he
well, no,
Fan
originally
had to
they
save
didn't.
the whole family. Yeah,
Did they even make it there originally?
pretty sure they did. Yeah, because at first they thought that he just had to send the guy to jail, but then they realized that originally they still went to the home and they all got killed.
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay.
But we're not in that timeline anymore.
Well, I mean, the company could have existed, and then Jeffrey or not Jeffrey could have, worked his way up and become the owner at some point, CEO, whatever. I don't know how companies work.
Yeah,
I don't
because
see it happening that way.
there was never a name for the person who was in charge of the whole chip thing, the boss. We knew they were male, but that's all we knew. We didn't have a name. So that person might have changed when Ben changed history.
Yeah, that's true too.
I don't see that
Convoluted,
happening.
but could be.
I'm sure it all makes sense in the end. I like seeing Alice again as Rachel. That was nice.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah. I still think that this is the start of the Evil Leaping project. And just on that note, some sad news. Hinton Battle, who played Thames, passed away this week, age 67. So I was very upset to hear about that. I have talked to him in the past. We didn't get to do an interview, unfortunately. It just never ended up happening. But he was always very keen to reprise his role as Thames as well. So it's a shame we'll never see that happen.
Yeah,
I was very saddened to hear that because he also was the demon in Once More with Feeling on the Buffy episode. So two great roles. And of course, he was Scarecrow in The Wiz on Broadway. And I had always held out hope that we would see him again in this new incarnation of Quantum Leap, along with Carolyn, but I guess it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I knew something was up when we saw Rachel in headquarters because we'd never seen Rachel in headquarters before, and I didn't think she had authorization to be there.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and even Gideon just gets right in there. It's like there's no security whatsoever. Jen didn't seem to know that anyone was in there. How is that possible? And where's Magic?
Well, it must have been the chip. The chip's given them access.
But it seems like throughout this show, a lot of people just seem to waltz in and it's like, hey, look at all this top secret crap we're not supposed to be looking at. There it is.
They seem very easily hacked, don't they?
Yeah.
Janice hacked them and caused some havoc for a while, and then we've got Gideon and Rachel as well. I think Jen needs to be fired. Give her another role other than security.
Well, I think that was part of the reveal of Gideon of how powerful he truly is, that he can walk into anywhere with beyond top secret clearance. So, I'm sure there are people like that in real life that can walk into anywhere. So where do you think that storyline's going? What's going to be with the chip, and how is that all going to work out?
Well, if my hunch is correct, it'll be Tom gets shitty, decides he's going to get the project shut down as revenge, and then they have to go to very, very rich people like Gideon to keep the project funded and going. So, I think that Gideon's going to end up being the big boss and the big bad.
I like
And
that
I think-
theory.
Yeah, and I also think that maybe the Evil Eating Project is this project once it's taken over, and they might just abandon Ben entirely, kick everyone out, and then the original crew has to try and rebuild and find Ben again while Gideon and his crew are sending out Aaliyah and Zoe and the Evil Leapers to go and do their purposes.
You almost need another time jump at the end of the season to make it happen,
Yeah.
I really liked the end of season 1, the beginning of season 2, how like everything changes. And I hope they continue that. So I hope we get like a big, crazy, messed up ending. And we'll be like thinking, how are they going to go forward with this? And oh my goodness. But I think I like the idea that you had about Gideon being in charge, and maybe if Rachel is still with him, we might be able to see more Rachel moving forward. That would be nice to see Rachel interacting with Ian in the office environment.
And remember, everything that they've done since being back has been illegal. So he's also got the possibility of blackmailing them all.
Oh, that was a question I had. Okay, there was this line where I think Rachel and Ian are on the phone and saying if he finds out, then they'll know everything. Everything. What is the everything? What did I miss? I don't understand. What are they hiding from who? Or is it what we already know? Or is it something else?
I don't know, but
Christina.
somebody has to tell Magic.
Right. Where is
Magic's
Magic?
busting
Even
ghosts.
in the episode?
Yeah, he's busting ghosts.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Was
somebody
Magic
call
even in the
in.
episode?
He's frozen in New York.
Wait, was he in the episode?
No, I didn't see him.
No,
Hang on,
he
no, he was there very briefly when Addison and Tom announced they were getting married.
Yes.
That's right.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And then he had to go to New York.
I'm sure his limited appearances have been because of Ghostbusters. So
Yeah. And not only that, too, I think maybe the government is sending orders from higher up saying, try and distance yourself a little bit from them. You don't want to get yourself into trouble. So,
well, I think Gideon is higher up than the government. So
Yeah, they said the NSA consulted Gideon for something. So he's in there.
and if Gideon's company and Gideon put this back door into this chip of the Quantum Leap Accelerator new chip or whatever they're using to find Ben, I'm sure that's like standard operating procedure that every chip, and I'm assuming this is like Steve Jobs kind of person to where his technology is in
Bill Gates or
everything.
someone.
So he knows maybe that's where he gets his power to be able to just blackmail everybody because he has access to everything, everyone's personal information, the dirt on everybody. I think that might be a way he gained his power.
That's why his hair is so big. It's full of secrets.
He's actually the one running the country.
Could be. So now it's time to go to the interview we did with Wilder Yari. And they played Dean in this episode. Great performance. I really loved it. You'll hear Christopher and I gushing over them and their performance during the interview, so I don't have to really do it here. But it's definitely one to watch, so check it out. This is Wilder Yari. Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast. I'm Albie. I'm here with Chris today, and we are so fortunate to have with us Wilder Yari. How you doing?
Hey, I'm great. How you doing, Albie? Also, Chris.
Good. They played
welcome.
Dean on The Family Treasure, so very, very excited to have you, main guest star, and we want to know everything about the episode and the filming, but first we want to know a little bit more about you. One of the things I was curious is like, how did you get started in the business? Like, what made you want to be an actor?
Oh man, great question. I've thought about this a lot, and I think the moment I realized I wanted to be an actor was watching a behind the scenes of Robin Williams doing the genie from Aladdin. Just like watching him in the booth, I was like, that's so cool. How do people get paid to do that? Yeah, and it was like a hobby, and then I ended up going to school for it, and I don't know, somewhere around like 14, 15, I was like, yeah, this is the thing I want to do forever. And I've been fortunate to get to do it and talk to cool people like you.
Cool. So if they approach you to be the genie in a new Aladdin.
Oh my God. An absolute, I would like just combust, burst into flames. Yeah. If you know anyone at Disney, have them call me.
You have the Florida connection. You can maybe facilitate that. Get on that, Albie. Get on that.
I'll work on it. I got people. So when did you first try it? Was it like a school play kind of thing or community theater or something?
Yeah, it was community theater. I would love to plug this right now, actually. So there's this program in New York. I'm from Brooklyn, as we all know at this point. But I'm from Brooklyn, and I started with this community theater program called Downtown Art. It's in the East Village, and it was essentially like run by teenagers under this like one like artistic director named Ryan Gillum. She's amazing, and it was like teens like from 12 to like 18 were like running the lights, acting and stuff, building the sets, moving the sets, writing the music, and it was really, really cool. It felt like this like I don't know, like in Peter Pan, like the Lost Boys kind of thing. It felt like that. And yeah, that was like, I started doing that when I was 12, and the lead of the show like dropped out or something, and I got to be the lead. And it was in this, like, we did shows out of this converted apartment in the East Village. And I just remember being like, this is the coolest thing that has ever happened. Like, how do I do this forever?
Yeah, that's a neat scene down there. I've been to many little black box theaters down in the East Village. KGB Bar is a good place to go see authors read and stuff like that.
Absolutely,
So,
yeah.
Such a thriving scene.
Close, yeah.
Yeah. So you are a Brooklyn native. How did you make the transition from the coast to coast? Did you stay there for long, or what was that journey like?
Easy. So my whole family is still back in New York, and I went to Emerson in Boston, and then it was sort of this. I knew I wanted to be an actor, and the questions like, do you want to move home or do you want to try LA? And I knew that I wanted to be in film and TV anyway, so I was like, I know I'm going to be back to New York for sure. So why move back to New York and just stay there for the rest of my life? So yeah, I was really, really fortunate that a lot of Emerson kids are film kids. So I moved out with this it was like this genesis of like 20 kids that all moved to LA around the same time. So yeah, it was a nice soft landing.
So how do you start out? Do you obviously probably auditioning for everything there is? Did you get some commercial work, or how did that work?
Man, it's funny because I said it was a nice soft landing, but it really wasn't. The first year I moved to LA as a New Yorker, as a East Coast city person, I was like, this makes no sense. I hate it here, like crying all the time. I learned how to drive like last year. I've been here for like 6 years at this point, and I failed my test 7 times. Like failed the driving test 7 times. Like 8th time's the charm, I guess. It was a rough go of it. I was submitting myself on Actors Access like every single day, just begging anyone to represent me, bounced around from like a lot of managers and agents and tried to do commercial work. I think I did just all kinds of, oh my God, actually the first acting job I got in LA was this artist's piece where she was recreating like this Nightlines interview with Madonna, and I got the role of Madonna. So I was filming this interview that she was doing in some garage in Chinatown, and I was like 22, and I was like, my God, this is never going to turn around for me. Like, this is not going to happen.
I could see that. You got that kind of vibe, that cool vibe that she had, when she was younger. Yeah.
I appreciate you guys. Yeah. I have no idea how it ended up working out, but yeah, it was cool. It was really cool.
And that turned into series work. I see you did the 4400, the new version. I'm very familiar with the original, not so much the new one. I can't wait to watch that. Tell me about that.
That was amazing. That was like my first like big gig. And yeah, like that was such a special moment in time, especially because like it's a reimagining of the original, but it's like very queer, very people of color forward. Majority of the cast was Black. The like showrunner was a Black woman. There was like just gays and people of color like coming out of the woodwork on that show. And I was really lucky to be there. Also, like they kept bringing me back. I was only supposed to be there for a couple of episodes, but they kept extending my contract. So I was living in this hotel in Chicago and just sort of kept being there and getting to hang out with the writers, many of whom I'm still like very close with to this day. And also all of the series regs, it was like a lot of their first series reg like opportunity. So a lot of them were like 22. Like I think the youngest person was like 19. And it was this very like special moment where they were all kind of coming up together. And it was my first gig, my first big gig as well. So yeah, I will always have a really special place in my heart for that time.
How did the part on Quantum Leap come about?
The Quantum Leap thing just happened because my reps were like, do you want to audition for this? And I was like, yes, I would love to. That's like a very traditional kind of situation.
So then did you audition, put yourself on tape, or how did that work?
Yeah, fully audition, put myself on tape. I worked with this amazing reader, Julie Meyer. She's someone that I work with quite a bit, and she's amazing. Shout out to Julie. And yeah, I really didn't think that this was going to pan out, to be honest with you. Like, it's not that I thought I like wouldn't get it, but it's not one of those tapes where I was like, nailed it in the bag. I was like, yeah, I think I did okay.
If you can speak a little bit to the experience of being a non-binary actor trying to make it in Hollywood, are there like two separate Hollywoods where is there a community, I'm sure, of like the queer community that maybe comes together, but is there limited access for actors like you for roles in more mainstream stuff? Like, I don't know if I have a real question there. I'm just so interested in the dynamic that you as a non-binary actor face in the community that you've devoted yourself to. I imagine that in many ways it makes it a little bit harder for you.
That's a great question. I appreciate it. I would say it is really dynamic and depends person to person. I would say something that is pretty difficult is there's definitely an idea of what a non-binary actor or non-binary like role look like. And I admit that I'm very much like within that sort of like androgynous, but not really leaning one way or the other. So I think Hollywood is still kind of expanding its idea of what non-binary looks like on screen. And that ends up shutting out a lot of people like kind of in different places on the spectrum. For instance, like I've been non-binary, but I've been like out about it for a couple of years now. And I remember when I was first trying to audition for non-binary roles, I had like long hair and looked much more feminine, and I was not getting called in, not getting called back, like zero. They definitely have an idea about what that looks like. And I do think that it's expanding, with more representation on screen. But yeah, I think it's just tough for casting and for even writers to a certain extent, where they're like not really sure how to like place a lot of actors. They're like, oh, you look like a girl, so we're gonna cast you in girl roles. Are you cool with that? And I'm fine with it. I'm fine playing female roles as long as they're interesting. But some actors aren't. I think it can really differ person to person.
One of the things I love about Quantum Leap is it's so inclusive, and it's so like it's reflective of the real world. It's not. It includes people that we all know and or are. And were you familiar with the show before you booked the role?
Yeah, definitely. Because I remember Mason getting cast and being really excited about that. And also, Chris, you're right. Like the non-binary, like actor world in Hollywood is pretty small. A lot of us know each other or like know of each other. So Mason and I hadn't met. We actually met on the show, and they're lovely. Like I'm sure you know this. They're one of the sweetest people that I've like. Definitely one of the sweetest like series regs that I've encountered on set. In that they went out of their way to be like, oh my gosh, I heard there's a non-binary actor. I would love to meet you. Just like, can't say enough good things. I was familiar with the show because Mason got cast, and I was like, Quantum Leap. It like rang a distant bell, and I was like, oh right, yes, 80s, right, totally. Definitely something that my parents are a little more familiar with. Not an original watcher. My skin is not that good, but just getting familiar with it. I've watched some episodes and like really loved it. Yeah.
So what did you think of the script when you received it?
I honestly, so it's interesting because I'm sure you guys have heard that the script changed a lot between the original writing and what ended up getting shot, which is pretty.
We didn't know that, so explain it to us. That'd be
Ooh,
great.
Okay, yeah, of course.
Because we know and love Shakina, but we want to find out more.
Shakina's amazing. Another person I can't say enough good things about. I know it sounds like I've been like coached to be like everyone's so great, but really everyone is so great. Yeah. So okay. Well, originally the story was about 3 siblings, and like going on this treasure hunt for their dad. Very similar to the story that you saw. But yeah, originally there were 3 siblings, and then we went as far as like our first day. We didn't shoot anything, but we came in to do photos, and it was 3 siblings. And then during that shoot, one of our siblings was like feeling really sick. She's like, I don't know, I don't feel so good, like no color in the face, just like, and we were like, we're all a little worried about her. It wasn't COVID. There weren't COVID symptoms. It was more like, what's it called? Like stomach bug, maybe, like just wasn't looking so hot. And I was like, you're fine. You'll be okay. You'll be okay. And then she's like, I think I might pass out. And we were like, maybe not so okay. So overnight, those 3 siblings had to get written down to 2. Especially with like, we didn't really realize this at the time, but like all of the stunts that happened, like she would have been in actual danger if she had like followed through and tried to tough it out. So yeah, the script changed quite a bit almost overnight. And I really got to give it up to Holly. She absorbed most of the lines of that other character. I did like a little, but mostly her. So yeah, I can't really speak to like what was it like when I first got it, because very quickly it was like, and we're doing something else.
So there were going to be 3 siblings plus Ray's character. So it was going to be 4.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Right. Yes. I was thinking 3 siblings plus Ray. Yeah.
Right. No, but that's to me is amazing because the 3 of you on the show played off each other so well, and the dynamics seemed to be there. Like it was designed to be there. So I can't even imagine putting another character into the episode that we saw. It'd be interesting to read the script to see how they differentiated the 4th sibling from the 3 of you that were on screen.
Yeah, I think you're right, because initially the 4th sibling was written as this sort of like dreamer, bookish type. So there was like oldest sister, which is sort of similar to the one that you saw, that's like very put together. She has kids. She's like stomping on the dreams. Middle sibling that Holly was supposed to play, that is kind of this like romantic but sort of buttoned down career girl, me, and then Nadia, who Ray played.
Right. Baby sister.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's neat. We're going to ask Shakina all about that, aren't we, Albie?
Oh, totally.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So you guys had some pretty great locations that you were shooting in. And I just want to back up a little bit and say how excited I was to see this episode just from reading the description of it, because it seemed like I said it on our last podcast. It seemed like an episode based on like Romancing the Stone or an adventure movie from the 80s. Totally. And it was that and more. And I loved the exotic locations that you guys were able to go to, or seemingly exotic anyway. Can you talk about some of the location shooting? I'm interested in that little Mexican town. I'm also interested in all of that cave work.
Oh, yeah, totally. Okay. So have you guys spoken to Jude yet?
No, you're the first. You're the first.
Okay, good to know. Okay, so Jude is going to say a million times that she was so inspired by the Goonies. And it comes up like the whole set. She was like, Goonies up, Goonies together. All of these shots are so reminiscent. So yeah, exactly what you're talking about. This like 80s adventure movie. It was like Indiana Jones, Goonies. So you're right on with that. I'm glad that ended up translating. So the little Mexican town was all the backlot at Universal.
Okay.
Wow. Except for we shot a little bit in my God, where like Santa Clarita. Mm-hmm. Way out, and then like you drove down a dirt road for like 15 minutes, and that was really cool. We did some cave stuff in Santa Clarita as well. Yeah, it was a blast. I've never been on the Universal backlot before. Like it was like I'd never even been on a tour or anything. Like bad Angelino, but it was super magical. Especially all of the stunts that we ended up doing like on the backlot. I was like, this is crazy. That like. Wow, this is all just here, all this and more.
Was that main scenes that we saw in the cave? You said you did some cave work out in Santa Clarita. Was those the cavern scenes, or was that more of a set?
It was a combination. So there were some things that we did in actual. Wait, I'm fully making that up. Wait, no, I'm so sorry. Okay, so yes, Santa Clarita, out in the middle of nowhere. The main street of the Mexican town, that's in Santa Clarita. But then like the Mexican church backlot, I think. Mm-hmm. God, you guys, I'm like mixing it all up and all together. But I think also like in Santa Clarita, they like built caves. There were like these like caves that exist, not actual from the earth caves, but like these like sets, but on location. And then that big main scene where we're like we pull the stone out, we have the big confrontation. Mm-hmm. That was fully on a stage, like in Burbank.
It was really cool. I had suspension of disbelief throughout the entire thing. I was so swept up in so many aspects of the episode. So that really worked. I can't wait to compliment everybody. But you're the first one, so I'm going to gush. I'm going to gush first at you. Okay, Wilder.
Always here to absorb it. Thank you.
I really enjoyed the dynamic between the different actors in this episode and the adventure feel. But in particular, I really enjoyed your vibe, your character's vibe, and like energy and your voice. And I feel like it was almost a mini evolution of the character through the episode. And like you became the ultimate character for me when you put the leather jacket on. And I was just like, wow, that's like the modern day Indiana Jones or something. And I was just like, I was just like swept up. Can you tell me about like your thoughts on the character and like what you brought to the character?
Oh, wow. First of all, thank you so much for your kind words. I really appreciate it. Wow. Thoughts on this character. It was really great to play someone that was already who they are as a transmasculine person, meaning in a lot of these narratives, these like trans or non-binary narratives, we see characters sort of like coming into their own, kind of playing with, which does happen in a sense in this episode. But right when you meet Dean, like they've already got the short hair, they're already presenting in masculine clothes. Their body language is very like, they're very comfortable in who they are. And when they talk to their siblings, it's not like, it's clear that they don't necessarily feel shame about who they are. They're like, I'm asking you to come on board with me, but I'm not like, is it okay if, and I, to be honest with you, like kind of struggled with that because I was like, is this realistic? Is this accurate? And then I did some research on like gender nonconforming people throughout history because we've existed throughout history. And I found this amazing photo of this person who I can't remember right now, but their exact name, but it's this amazing photo from 1947 of these two like gender nonconforming people that looked a lot like me in my costume. And this photo was them in a police precinct because they'd gotten picked up for like cross-dressing essentially. And it was like a little write-up about their story. It was like a police record that they were like living together. They worked in a factory where they met and were dressing in men's clothing. And like the look in their eyes was so comfortable. Like they were just like, it's so funny that you picked me up. Like there was no like fear or shame or hesitation. They were just like, I'm living my life. Like, and yeah, getting to do that research really encouraged me, really inspired me. I was like, right, yes, if this person would exist, there's this world in which this person existed just how they are.
Thank you for elaborating on that and for talking about the research, because a lot of the times when I have a disconnect, when I'm watching stories that feature gay characters, non-binary characters, anyone from the queer community, really, especially in a time travel show like Quantum Leap,
Totally.
I think, okay, we've all always been here.
Right.
You know, it doesn't matter the era, but the representation, how it's portrayed in certain time periods, it sometimes takes me out of it, because I think, would it really be that way? Or are we kind of looking back on the way we wanted it to be? Or is it a little bit of a mix of both? So I guess that maybe goes to Albie's question about how you're prepared and some of what you said, but it's nice to know that what we're seeing on screen is somewhat accurate.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's always it's a lingering question I've had, because the show has done so many different characters from the community that I can't help but think, is this someone who would have been this comfortable expressing themselves in that era?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I totally hear you, and I have definitely had those same questions, and I sort of feel the same way when I watch historical shows. But definitely the research, if you dig a little bit and you see all these people that were just very simply existing, it's like, wow, yeah, this story did exist in these like little pockets. Just maybe we don't hear about them all the time, or maybe we don't, it wasn't like the dominant narrative, of course. And also there definitely was a narrative, like there were norms to buck against. But I just think about that photo of those two people. I'm totally going to look it up just like in a second, but I think of this photo of these two people and their whole story about just being who they are and not giving a damn. I was like, that person is Dean, and that person existed. Those two people existed. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for that insight.
Yeah.
That is great. One of the things I love about Quantum Leap is it educates people. It educates the audience. It educates me. And my mother, for example, she was born in 1936. So when she first started watching this incarnation of Quantum Leap, she was familiar with the original, because I've been a fan my whole life. So she figured she'd try the new one. And honestly, she was confused about Ian and Mason at the beginning, which is understandable because she was never exposed to it. But now she's like the biggest fan of Ian and Mason and loves everything. So, and I think it's great to have these episodes that come up, like Let Them Play last season and this season, just to educate people that might not be familiar or haven't looked into it, or don't have a loved one, or don't know they have a loved one that might fit into this community. But I guess my question is, when you got the script, and especially the script, the part of the script about the binding and the reveal and the talking to your sibling, is that true to your story, or did you bring anything to it? Was there a conversation with Shakina about how to make it more true? Because I learned a lot from that. I had no idea about that part.
Oh yeah, that is a great question. Yeah, thank you for asking. So binding with bandages has not been a part of my experience, because I've been fortunate enough to grow up in a time where that is sort of known not to do, because it's really bad for you. Compresses your lungs and can damage muscle tissue and all that. So that wasn't part of my experience necessarily, but it was something that Shakina talked about quite a bit, because she and the costume department were like, well, do you want to wear a binding garment? We can make something for you that kind of looks like binding. And actually I was the one that was like, no, I think I want to bind for real. Not from a method perspective necessarily, but because first of all, the stuff that the costume department is incredible, as we all know on this show, but the stuff that they made just didn't look right. It didn't look how it was supposed to look, because the point of the garment is to flatten your chest. But it didn't. It just looked like a very nice tube top. And I was like, this isn't really doing. So yeah, I'm actually bound. But this was only after Shakina, the costume department, multiple people were like, are you cool with this? Are you sure? And it was my decision. And I will tell you from personal experience now, after a couple of days of doing that, I was like, this is absolute torture. I don't know how people do this. Wow, that's so bad for you.
Were you bound throughout all of your scenes for the authenticity, or was it just for the scene when you were in the field?
It was just for the scenes in the field. I initially thought about doing like binding all the way through, and then the garment wasn't ready necessarily. We were still sort of like tinkering with it because the script was changing, etc. So it ended up being something that we decided later. And I had all these stunts to do, and I was like, this is just not pragmatic to like be bound and be like running and ducking and hiding. And it just, yeah, I was like, there's authenticity and then there's torturing yourself, I think. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
Talk to us about the stunts, because it was a very stunt heavy, exciting episode with the water and the rocks. Just take us through the whole process.
Oh my God, guys. I am not an athletic person. That's why I got into theater, to be honest with you. What's it called? It's not astigmatism. It's like one eye is nearsighted, one eye is farsighted, so I can't catch a ball at all. So I was like, well, I guess I'll join. No one's picking me for dodgeball. I guess I'll hang out with the theater kids. So learning that I would do stunts was really exciting and really something that I was really enthusiastic to do. So, okay, we're in this back lot. It's this nice big like sloping hill, and I didn't know exactly what we were gonna do. I didn't know how much water we would be dealing with because I'd never experienced anything like this before. But when we saw they did a run with our stunt doubles, and watching them like run, it was like gallons and gallons and gallons of water. We're getting like pumped from around the corner, so all of this is like rushing down, and they are truly running away from it, leaping over this rock, hiding behind it, and the water like splashes over them. So they did that first, and it's like me, Holly, Ray, just like standing behind the camera, like, are we gonna do that? They want us to do that? And yes, they did, but in a much more, in like a slower, a little bit more controlled environment. But yeah, it was incredible because, so we only got to do it like a couple of times because we were soaked to the bone, and it just, you can't like dry off completely, reset, etc. But there was this moment where it's me and Ray and Holly, and we're going for like this crane shot. So the camera's on this crane looking dead in front of us. We're running towards it as the water rushes behind us. But it's the movement of the camera is to like stay with us, and then like come up and over. So there's this moment, it's like midnight on a Friday. We're like I might be exaggerating slightly, but midnight-ish on a Friday, already soaking wet, standing with these two people. There's a camera on this massive machine, like trained in front of me, and I'm looking down the lens, and I have this moment, I'm like tense, waiting for Maria, the AD, to call water, and then we start running. That's the plan. And I have this moment where I'm like, this is the coolest job ever. This is like the coolest job in the world. Yeah, it was really fun, really exciting. After every take, we were soaking wet, absolutely freezing, and like maniacally laughing, like just from the adrenaline. Just like, did we really do that? We just got like pounds and pounds and pounds of water just like splashed over us. That was crazy. Yeah.
The falling rocks in the cave. What was that day like?
Falling rocks in the cave. Okay, give me 1 second. Oh, way easier, you guys. way easier. There's all these foam rocks. Oh, but you know what was really fun? that stunt, it's like a light stunt, but doing a stunt where I like dive for the key at the same time as Wells, who is, I would love to take a moment to shout him out as well. I love Veep. It's like my comfort show. And nobody tells you who you're working with. And we're seeing him on set and being like, I love you. Oh my God. But like, it was too cool to tell him at the time, but he was playing Wells. We were both like, I think we were both kind of diving for this. I was truly diving. He was like diving a little bit because he has bad knees and stuff. But he was ad-libbing these like really funny, I don't know if it actually made it into the episode yet, but there's this moment where Ray like launches towards him to try and get the key after I throw the rock and it doesn't do anything. Where he's like, whoa, little lady, like don't run at me. And we were all like giggling the whole time, but that's neither here nor there. To the moment where I was diving for the key it was really great. And then these like foam rocks fell on me. Yeah, I don't know. It was really fun to like actually kind of do the thing that you're trying to do, if that makes sense. Most of the time when you're acting, you're faking whatever emotion it really is. You're holding a cup full of nothing, etc. But to actually run from gallons and gallons of water, to actually dive for something like you really, really want it, it's honestly such a like gift as an actor, because you're just able to react organically as opposed to try to, find what if I'm trying to die, what sounds most real, what sounds like an authentic death. Yeah.
What's it like to have a stunt person on set dressed exactly like you?
So weird, you guys. It's so weird. Yeah, my stunt double's name was Blake, and yeah, stunt people are a different breed. They just don't. There's like something, like in the coolest way, their brains just function differently. Like they did all that crazy water stuff that I was telling you about, and they just all just like got back up and they're like shrug it off like nothing happened. And me and Ray and Holly are all like panting and crying and just like, I can't believe we did that. And they're like, oh, do you want us to go again? Do you want us to run again? Like it was, yeah. But it's super weird. To answer your question.
Cool. One thing I noticed when setting up these interviews for this episode was everybody on the team seems to be really close between Jude, Shakina, you, Holly. What was the whole dynamic between like you and Holly on the set?
Oh my God, I'm so excited I get to talk about her first. She is amazing. Like she is, okay, so we lost our other sibling very quickly, and it was very like, it was her and me very quickly being like, okay, this is us now. We're gonna take care of this together. It wouldn't have been as good. I haven't seen it yet, but acting with her felt incredible. There's an enormous amount of trust that we had, I think, because we had all this work to do together with learning all these lines. We were sort of like doing these stunts, just shouldering a lot of this together as like kind of the what's the word, like the key guest members of that family. So it was like us trying to navigate like Quantum Leap world together. She is a formidable actor, and yeah, I can't say enough good things. We recently hung out at the season wrap party, and I'm like, oh, I love that woman so much.
Is there anything we'd be surprised to know about the filming of the episode that we might not necessarily get from watching it?
Wow, that's a great question. Okay, let me think. Stuff that you wouldn't know about the episode necessarily from watching it. Oh, okay. This was just weird for me to watch. But so we're in the house, the family house. We're open the safe, and all these gems come out. The way that this team just drilled, like cut into a wall of this house so that they could put the camera in it. I was like, can you do that? Like, it's not a stage. It's a full house on the back lot where all of these shows have been shot and movies, and I can't remember any of them right now, of course. But yeah, they just cut straight into the wall, and I was shocked and mildly horrified. I was like, is this allowed? So yeah, that happened. Also, so I'm very, very lucky, very fortunate to have writers and casting that care about this kind of thing, but they found out that I'm Middle Eastern. My mother is from Iran, and they changed a lot of the story. Like they changed the ethnicity of the dad, and there are all of these touches in I think they changed they changed all of our names. And there are all these production touches throughout the house that are Middle Eastern. Like when we're doing these intro scenes, it's like the stuff with the will reading and all that. There are all these like little touches, the tea set, the snacks. Like it was so surprising the way they just like pulled that out of a props house. It was like so beautiful, so exact. Yeah, and I don't think you would know that if you didn't know. Yeah.
That's amazing. Like it's so heartwarming to hear that everyone at the production really cares about that sort of detail and not just go over there and do your line, you know?
Mhm.
Totally. Yeah. It was like down to all of these like little tiny things. And I was like, oh, really? What? Oh my God.
You know, it's funny. We have so much to talk about, and I feel like there is a key thing that I do want to talk about because it was basically the central part of the episode, and it was the scene where Dean is explaining who they are.
Yeah.
And as I'm watching, I go from this giddy excitement of this adventure episode, and by the time you were done with that scene, I was crying.
Oh.
And like I said, there were so many highs and feels for me in this episode. I'm trying to constrain myself from getting too effusive, but
yeah.
I want to know a little bit about how that scene was directed, how it came together, how much of your background you brought to that, and because it was just so effective on every level. Everybody nailed it. Even Mason, who's watching it back in the cave, and they're not with you, you're not with them, but it all gelled perfectly.
Oh, thank you. That really means a lot. Yeah. Well, let me think. In terms of what made that scene, I really think a lot of it comes down to Jude, to be honest, Jude and Holly, because we'll talk about Shakina in a minute, and that is another woman that I'm like, I owe my life to you. I love you. But I was coming at it from a particular angle. Initially, I was coming at it from this very it was kind of what we were talking about before, like not necessarily shame, but a much more vulnerable place where I was like, please see me, please accept me. I'm asking you to do this. And Jude was like, and Shakina as well, were like, you are not really asking them. You are offering Ray and Holly a chance to be closer to you. You are giving them an opportunity to see you. And if they don't see it, it doesn't change who you are. Which was crazy. Like, I was like, what? Whoa. But yeah, I think that was really the key to the entire thing. And yeah, honestly, I got to give it up to Holly's huge brown eyes. Like we have multiple scenes together where both of us just like don't intentionally just like kind of start crying or just trying to get through the damn thing. But like the binder scene where she gives me a binder and the scene where I like show her the bandages, both of us were like fighting tears the whole time. So yeah, Jude, Shakina, Holly's giant brown eyes for sure.
Yeah, it was a very touching scene, very genuine, very just perfect, I think, in every way.
Yeah, I just love the way that it. I don't know. I guess you expect a little bit more, like a dramatic thing, but it was just so matter of fact. It was so straightforward, and I think that's what was the biggest selling point to me about the scene, is that it just seemed like an organic moment. It wasn't like a bunch of hysterics. Totally. Or no, you don't get me. It's like, this is who I am. Absolutely. And then I think at the end, you were able to say thank you for seeing me.
Yeah.
And I just lost it. So
Totally. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You alluded to it earlier, but tell me about working with Shakina.
Oh my God. Okay. I met Shakina at my fitting. So it's like the week before. Yeah. And everyone is super nice at HQ in Burbank. Of course, I'm meeting all these people. They're like, the writers would like to meet you. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, great. So get pulled into a room, and immediately this like 6 foot tall, like Amazon woman looks at me, and I look at her, and we're just like, oh my God, hi, like, hello. We both just like, I mean, I can't speak for her, but I melted immediately. It felt very like, it almost felt like we'd like known each other before. And I know, again, it sounds like PR coaching, but really. And she really like took me under her wing that whole set. She is very like maternal, I got you, baby kind of energy. She made sure that my costuming was on point. She made sure that certain angles were like, I don't know how to explain this, but like, okay. She made sure that like the camera treated me the way I would want to be treated, if that makes sense. Like, for instance, shooting at an angle that isn't quite as low, because the jeans that I was wearing in certain angles, it was like, that's a butt. That's like a feminine figure. And she's like, you need to lift it. You need to lift the camera just like an inch. I'm telling you. But stuff like that, which is like, so it's a really strong argument. For why we need people from the stories that you're telling behind the camera. Like, I would say almost more important than in front of it. She was the reason that, she helped me through that entire binder situation. She worked with me on the lines when I needed to get massaged a little bit. I also give a lot of credit to her co-writer, Adrita. I actually don't know if they're co-writers or if, I don't really know what the situation was there, but Adrita was also very, very helpful. But specifically having a trans person, a member of the community kind of on my side, like, meant everything to me.
Cool.
And your relationship with Jude during the shoot.
Oh man. Yeah. Jude is so cool. Jude is like it's like a summer camp vibe. She's a really good director though. Is like, okay. She sounds like someone that maybe was an actor at some point. The way that she can connect to actors on she'll say stuff that I'm like, oh my God, you're a genius. Like she'll be like, can you invite her in this scene? Can you support her? And if you're not getting it, she will give you she's like, paint the picture. She will work with you on whatever level you need to be worked with. But also it's like shooting the shit with the grips. And like, I noticed that I do a little bit of directing myself, and it was a really helpful like learning moment to watch the way that she was really good at saying yes to people. Really good at being like, yeah, you want to do that? That's great. Yeah, I like that. Like, sure. You think of, at least I think of directors as being almost dictatorial, or they can be. Whereas I found with her, and the show moves at a really quick pace, I found with her that she had this strength in being able to bend where she needed to. So when she had to make a point, it was respected all the way around. And people just did whatever the hell she was like, okay, so you're going to get like gallons of water to the face. And we were like, yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
I have to know, what was it like working with Ray?
Ray is a really, really giving actor. Especially like you don't always get a series reg that's willing to like sit through the takes and really work with you, but he was amazing. He has like the kindest eyes. And it was like, we were going 3-4 takes. We're in caves. We're inhaling all kinds of dust. And he's like, yep, 15 take. Yep, absolutely. And is like really sitting with every single person he worked with. So yeah, can't say enough good things about him either, actually.
He just seems so lovely. Love that guy. Okay, I have one key question, kind of like Chris did, but this one is, who got to keep the key from the shoot?
Yeah, actually, nobody kept the key, surprisingly. But I was really desperate to take a piece of this set back because it was such a wonderful experience that I like begged and pleaded to keep my cowboy hat.
Wow.
And they let me at like my last day. I came back to my trailer, and there was a cowboy hat sitting on the little counter in my trailer with a note from Costumes that was like, "You've been lovely. Here's a little souvenir for you." And I truly screamed. Yeah, it's like, it's got the dust on it. The thing is, like, somebody was like, "Why don't you just like get?" I was telling the actors, the PAs, I was like, "I really want this hat," and they're like, "Why don't you just get a copy? It's like not an expensive hat." And I was like, "It's got the dust on it. I want the dust."
It's cool.
That is very cool. Something you can hold on to for a lifetime.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah. It's really about the dust, not about the hat.
It's
right?
about the dust, not the hat. Yeah.
Hashtag, that'll be our new t-shirt. It's about the dust, not the hat. We'll have Wilder's hat. Yeah. It's going to be the bestseller in our shop if we ever get an online shop.
Totally.
So, well, I mean, Wilder, we have taken far too much of your time. We always lie and say it's going to be about a half an hour, but everybody's so interesting. We just want to keep talking. But we want to be cognizant, and we want to thank you for all of the great stuff that you brought us. Do you have any messages for the Leapers out there before we wrap up?
Oh my gosh, messages for the Leapers. Thank you for making the show what it is. It was such a joy to work on, and it wouldn't be possible without all of you.
And it wouldn't be possible without great actors like you. Thank you, Wilder Yari, for appearing with us here on the Quantum Leap podcast.
Oh, you guys are the best. All right.
And we're back. Wow. That was a great interview. And it's time for some more. We have a great dual interview with the writer of this episode, Shakina, and the director of this episode, Jude. So we recorded an interview. We recorded a commentary. I'm excited to just get to the interview, and it's great. Here it is. Hello, Leapers. Welcome back to the Quantum Leap podcast. I'm Albie. I'm here with Chris.
Hey.
And we are so lucky to have the writer and director of The Family Treasure. We have the writer, Shakina, and we have the director, Jude Wang. How are you both doing?
So great. So happy to be here.
Thanks for having us.
We're so happy to have you. We have so many questions, but spoiler alert, we love this episode, so we might gush a little bit.
A little bit. Just a little. If you don't get enough of it from me now, just listen to the podcast where Alice and I review the episode, and you can hear me gush anew. And
great.
I guess I'll start. Shakina, where did this idea come from, and how did it change from the inception to the final script?
Wow, it changed so many times, and it happened so quickly, and it came from nowhere. We just got back from the strike, and I had originally written another episode, which one day maybe I'll have the pleasure of talking to you about the musical episode of Quantum Leap. But unfortunately, we couldn't make a musical episode of Quantum Leap after the strike. We were just too pressed for time and money. And so we had to come up with a new idea for my episode. And I had already thrown a couple things at the wall. Nothing was really sticking. And we were on a really compressed timeline. And Martin and Dean came up to me, and they called me up, and they were like, "We just want to do like a Romancing the Stone type of story. And if you can figure out a way to put a non-binary character in there, like that'd be really sweet." And I was like, challenge accepted. And I had a bunch of sort of internal reference points for myself from of course, Indiana Jones and Goonies, and also like Adventures in Babysitting, and just sort of like vibe that I felt I wanted to capture. And it was so kind of cool. I really had to lean on the room for this one, because we only had really a week to break the story and then a week to turn around the script. It was very fast. And so I just sort of came up with these random clues first, and was like, okay, I don't know what the story is, but I know that there's like a turn for every season of Guadalupe's Flower. I know that Snakes Underground had the Shamrock Key. I'm sorry, I'm giving away spoilers already. But the clues became like sort of my first way in, and then I kind of built a mythology around it, and then kept asking if we could go different places and see different things, and I kept getting told probably not, but write it and we'll see. And then it just got bigger and wilder, literally, and yeah, so that's
It's
kind of
so
how it
cute.
happened. But it went through a lot of quick rewrites and revisions, and it was really a team. Like Dean was all over the script with me. Jude Mukherjee, who's a EP on the episode, was like incredible, and like at my side every time we were on set. So there were so many, and then we workshopped the script with Jude and the actors like live in the moment. So what came out, in the episode is like such a collaborative authorship, really, but I was so happy to be like the writer who got to helm it in that way.
And when Jude, when did you come on board in the process, and when did your collaboration start with Shakina?
So as an episodic director, you get booked way in advance, and you also never know what episode is going to land in your hands. And Shakina, I hope it's okay that I tell everybody what the early title was, because when the early script came to me, the title was Bendiana Jones.
I tried.
Yeah, and I was like, yes, this is my jam. When we were chatting with Albie earlier, I'm the director of a feature film called Finding Ohana. Indiana Jones, the first one, is the first movie I ever saw in an American theater, because I'm an immigrant to this country. And I came as a young person, and, very typical of immigrants, their children do a lot of the work in the family business. So I didn't get to watch TV. I didn't get to see movies. I didn't go to summer camp. I didn't do normal things that kids in America get to do. And so Indiana Jones was the first American movie I ever saw, and it left such a huge impression on me that my thought was, the feeling this movie gave me, it gave me all the feels. That's the feeling I want to give viewers as a filmmaker and as a TV director. So when I got this episode, it was exactly fulfilling another childhood dream. It just checked so many boxes. It gave you all the feels. There was comedy, there was action, there was clues, there was huge set pieces. And God bless Shakina, because Shakina and I had so much fun working on this together.
Yeah, the set piece part was like, so, I mean, yes to all that. Like, we knew that we wanted to make a classic. I'm a huge fan of Jude's film Finding Ohana, and I had reached out to her as soon as I found out that she was directing the episode to kind of fangirl, and then say how excited I was to collab. But we were able to make so many environments happen on such a tight timeline with an incredible art direction and set decoration team, and like the places we get to go, from the caves to the church, and then using the flood at Universal Studios is like so wild, like a total dream to get to achieve that in an episode, and all in one episode. And yeah, it was very iconic.
With the writer's strike and the actor strike, did the idea of Jude being involved in it out there, and you just had to wait for it?
That all happened post-strike. My episode, my previous episode, got all the way to outline before the strike, and then when we came back, it was like kind of tossed, and we had to start from scratch. So that's why I was saying I wrote the episode in such a compressed timeline, and then Jude was matched with it already, I guess, to direct 210, or I'm not sure how that matchmaking works. I was supposed to be 209, but because it had to get thrown out, they moved me to 210 and moved up things, and that happens all the time in TV. And so it was just meant to be, and the thing that wasn't, and this became the thing that it is. And very fortuitous.
How do you take something that's like as big and adventurous of this episode, and it's so much like Indiana Jones, Goonies, where they have, 8 months to film, and you have 8 days. How do you do that?
Oh my gosh. Shakina, do you want to start? You want me to start?
Well, I can say from the writing point of view that, thinking about having these environments be contained and paired with a clue and a story point, so that I could ultimately pare it down to like the essential information in the coolest places, and distill it in that way, so that I knew I had a string of clues, and if I could place each clue in a cool environment, then I would manage to, in like a 5-act structure in 42 minutes, not counting everything that has to happen in HQ, managed to get you all of the feels and the beats of a total treasure hunt. And so that's what I tried to do as a writer, was just like boom, 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 boom. You know, each act is a different set piece and has a different clue. And but then, yeah, how to do that in 8 days was, you know, part of Jude's masterful work.
We understand because we've spoken to some of the actors involved in this episode that one of the most common things that Jude would say before the scenes was to goonie up. So I'd like to know, this is an episode that I liked so much because, like Jude, Indiana Jones is a touchstone for me. Raiders is a touchstone for me. And was it difficult for you to find a line where you were doing sort of a classic adventure type story, but still make it Quantum Leap and also tell the story that you wanted to tell character wise? Because there was so much great character stuff in this. And it's almost seems like stuff that should not go with an action adventure treasure hunting story. So I'm just curious to know, because you had what, a day and a half to write the thing.
Yeah.
Like where the character stuff came in with all this. And I know we'll probably discuss some of it when we're watching the show, but maybe in some broad strokes, how you juxtaposed both.
I think that it was a really tricky needle to thread, but really an exciting challenge, because what I love doing is queering a trope. Like, that's one of my favorite things to do. Yeah, and not all tropes are bad. Like, a lot of tropes are really great containers, you know, for information and like cultural expression. And so, you know, Indiana Jones, a classic adventure story, Goonies, a classic adventure story. Like, they have these canonical tropes that you can sort of, you know, fill in with your own vision if you can line them up and set them up and knock them down in the right way, you know. And what I love to do is to take these really familiar containers that like instantly tap into our cultural nostalgia and our joy and accessibility, which is also like what Quantum Leap is known for, and then inject them with the kind of liberatory queerness that like was never really included in the vision of those worlds, whether that is a teen basketball story or a 1950s treasure hunt or what have you. You know, I like to queer the trope, and but I honor the trope, and I enjoy playing within the confines and the structure and the gifts of the trope. So Indiana Jones, Goonies, you know, they give us these benchmark moments that occur in storytelling, but also visually, like the way that Jude was, you know, framing these shots to give us that classic feel. And yeah, and so I had the kind of setup I needed to, you know, put, like I said before, put that into a kind of act structure for TV writing. And then you get, you know, in Quantum Leap, you get you get a guest star track every episode, and you try and make something meaningful out of this character that you're inventing for most of the time one leap. You know, this season has been a little different, and that's really awesome. But so I guess we had the blessing of having, you know, 2 siblings, which was even more exciting. But in terms of what I could do with like my trans intervention, you know, in pop culture, like the moment you get to be like, I'm gonna pop through and do something really trans for a second in pop culture, I get a chance, you know, like, so it was like, if everything else feels familiar, if everything else feels like nostalgic and exciting and safe, then we can take this really big queer leap and people won't even know that it happened. They're just on the ride. And then suddenly you're privy to such an intimate, powerful, liberatory coming out moment, you know, for 2 people in some ways. And then we're back in the story, and we have to have this total transformation and be lifted up and set back down in a place that we feel safe. And I think Quantum Leap like does that week to week, and I was really happy to get to do my version of that for this episode.
Awesome.
Were you both involved in the casting? Because the casting is just so amazing in this episode with Holly and Wilder. I mean, it's just perfect. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, Shakina and I were both involved in casting. Obviously, with big network shows, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. We certainly weigh in terms of our preferences. But Shakina and I felt really blessed. Number one, I just had to give a quick shout out to Shakina. Like Shakina and I were just always on the same page on so many things, creatively, tone, and then even right down to casting. We were just eye to eye on that. And so it was really clear from the get-go that Wilder just had a really wonderful energy and also absolutely gorgeous to boot. I mean, just talk about, and you'll see it in the episode, but their close-ups, holy cow, the camera loves their face.
Yeah, I was saying like non-binary dreamboat matinee idol energy. Just like, it's so fun to have a that kind of role even exist, and and the actor has to bring that to life. Like the Dean on paper is badass, but when you have someone like Wilder to bring them to life, it's just such a gift.
And then with Holly, I thought Holly was so delightful and so versatile. And when I saw Holly read, I think Shakina and I both felt the same thing, which was, oh, Holly can play any part, like any sibling Holly can do, because she has a fragility, but she also has a strength. I mean, she's very, very multifaceted. So it was just a dream casting.
And I guess you've already spoken to some other folks. Have you heard about the last minute rewrites that we had to go through that involved casting changes and such?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's that like?
So
We want to ask you about that. Yeah.
yeah, so wild, and it just art making, TV making in the age of COVID, even being preventative when there's an illness on set, we had to make changes. And so I had originally written a story for 3 siblings. And after we had cast, when we were in our last day of prep, about to start shooting, we had to make a last minute choice and reduce it to a 2-sibling story, which I think must have been really, really painful for some people. And I was just like, we have to make the most of this moment and do what we can do to realign. And Holly was an incredible champion, because we took basically 2 sisters and combined them into one, and then gave another story element to Dean, which ended up enhancing that character incredibly. And so overnight, we wrote a 3-sibling story into a 2-sibling story. Thanks to Martin and Dean's help. And Holly had to basically switch archetypes. I mean, really, had come in auditioning for a very specific type of sibling and a sister, and ended up playing a role that was completely the opposite of what maybe she thought she signed up for, and it was perfect.
Well, we've been talking a lot about a lot of stuff, and I feel like, we have so much more to talk about, but let's do it in context, because we are here to do a writer, director, commentary track. So everybody that's listening to this now, watching this now, go to Peacock, load up the episode, and we'll give you a cue as to when to start, because we're going to be watching along with Shakina and with Jude, and we're going to talk all about some of the stuff we've been alluding to, and you're going to see and hear how the magic happened and how it came to life on screen. And I'm sure there's going to be a million other things as you guys are watching that you're going to say, oh, but wait a minute, what about that? Oh, wait a minute, but what? Oh, do you remember when that happened? So it's always so much fun. It's always such a journey, and it's so fascinating. So again, if you don't have Peacock loaded up, put the episode on. And if this is 30 years from now, put it on your holo projector. But we're getting going. All right.
I'm so excited.
And we're back. What a team they make. If they can do this again once a season, I'm all for it. Everything just worked for me in this episode. So, Hayden, further thoughts on this episode before we give our final thoughts and wrap up?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because we didn't get the leap in to this episode at the end of the previous one, so I actually had no idea what to expect. But with Ben leaping in, holding the tray, I actually thought that he had leapt into their maid or their servant. I didn't think that the person that he leapt into was one of the member of the family. So it did surprise me when they're like, "Oh, come sit down, come join us for this will reading," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." So maybe she was sleeping with the dad. I don't know, but that's kind of what went through my head. But yeah, so I just thought it was a bit of a strange sort of leap in. Yeah, he could have just leapt in while they were sitting at the couch. It just seemed kind of a strange choice to have him leaping in looking like the butler, basically.
I really like that part because it felt more like Quantum Leap to me. I know I say this a lot, but it felt very Quantum Leapy, especially the beginning of this episode, the whole episode overall, but the beginning of the episode, because Ben has to leap in, figure out who he is and where he's going and what his name is, and like he heard that they said, "Nadia, come sit over here," and then he goes, "Nadia, that's me," and he just was going with it. Like he was thrown on stage with an improv group and he was just going with it. And I really love that. And exactly. And Ray is so good at that. Scott was so good at that. And Ben and Sam were so good at that. And I just love that part of it, that just keep going with it. And I just like that feeling.
And on rewatch, you get, you see the picture of the family right off the bat, and he sees her reflection in the picture. So that was kind of neat too.
Yeah, it's nice we actually got to see a mirror shot this time, because they've been a bit slack with those lately, haven't they?
Yeah, and in this one we don't get a leap out again. So I wish they would do that, and I don't know why they can't do the leap effect out and then in. It has to be the eye roll or the eye zoom or whatever they. Why?
Maybe it's cheaper.
Yeah, just a little bit about the dad. They did have a lot of anger towards him, but you could still tell that they loved and missed him. And even though he was gone a lot in the beginning, when he's naming these items that he's giving to his daughters, he's got stories attached to him. So there was a relationship there at some point. And, he picked things, I think, that he thought might be important to them. So there was something there.
I knew this episode was an adventure mystery, and I thought the objects were going to work together, because when I saw that vase, I saw like an impression in the vase. And then when I saw the ship in a bottle, I was like, okay, the ship goes in that impression in the vase, and they're going to do, and no, it just broke. So I was wrong, but I was seeing puzzle pieces and mysteries where there weren't any. So
yeah, well, it's kind of funny. I thought it seemed like a huge coincidence that Ben breaking the ship is what precipitated them finding the maps and getting the leap going. I think it would have been a huge gamble on GTF Dubs to just do that, because maybe in the original history they didn't even notice that there was a map there at all. They just took their objects and went on with their lives. But then they actually wrote in, that it was always going to be the case that the lawyer would push Ben and make Ben drop it and smash it. So that they. And
I totally missed that on the first viewing, but rewatching it, it was crazy obvious, and I don't know how I missed it.
Yeah. So I thought that was actually kind of well written, because I was thinking, wow, that's a huge coincidence when I watched it.
Yeah.
Because the other part of the episode I wanted to mention, which I found funny while watching it, was kind of like when we saw the lawyer look at the map in the beginning, we knew we'd see the lawyer again. When Dean hands Sarah the satchel and says, "Watch my satchel," it's kind of like saying the satchel's about to be stolen.
Right.
And 30 seconds later it was. I was like,
they really did spoon feed the audience. I think a casual viewer wouldn't notice, but we're critics. We're used to looking for these things, and we noticed.
Yeah, that's it. They're not writing it for us. They're writing it for the casual viewer that might be texting while they're watching and cooking dinner maybe, or doing something different, or so they might need those little nudges and reminders of what to watch out for. But it's basically, okay, watch the satchel because it's going to disappear now. So that was interesting.
The satchel actually does disappear from Ben's shoulder in the shot by the well. You see him pick up the rock. He's got the satchel on his arm. And then when the camera changes perspective and they're looking up at the trio there, the satchel disappears from his arm.
Could be script supervisor error, or it could just be they needed to edit something out for time. We'll never know. We should get the script supervisor on. That would be interesting. That would be interesting. All right, final thoughts on The Family Treasure and your out of 5 rating. And Christina, since it's only your second time joining us, we'll start with you.
Oh yay, firsties! Does anybody say that anymore?
Yes. We all do now.
Okay.
People said that.
I loved this episode. It was fun. It was adventurous. It was very heartfelt. There were a few times where I got a bit choked up. Don't want to admit to crying, but as you do. I really liked the family dynamics and just how everything all came together in the end. Even if the treasure didn't show up at the house in the end, I still think it would have been a wonderful ending. Either way, I'm going to go with we'll go with 4.5 snakes in a well for this one.
Out of how many?
5. Always 5. Brian, final thoughts and rating out of 5.
I loved it. Just to reiterate what Christina said, the family dynamic was great. I believed it. The siblings, squabbling among themselves is totally believable. I love the adventure of it, the Indiana Jones all over the place in it. Really, really sealed it for me. And even the educational moments with explaining how non-binary works was good for me. So I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 sham rocks.
Oh, damn it, you took mine. I was gonna go rocks that have no business being there. Oh, oh well. I am so pleased that thankfully we are on an upward trajectory. This was a much better episode than the previous one. It wasn't perfect because I could have done without being spoon-fed, and I could have... there were some very predictable parts to it. But I did love the family dynamic. I did like the non-binary explanation. I'm very keen to find out what's going to go on at the project now that Tom is pissed off and now that Gideon's taking over. So I'm going to give it, what was I going to give it? I'm going to give it 4 family jewels out of 5.
All right. I too, Christina, got emotional during this episode a couple times. Once was when Dean was saying who they were to their sister and wanting their sister to love them still, and but being okay with being who they were either way. That made me emotional. That scene was just so perfect for me. But the part where I really teared up was when Addison called off the wedding, because I've been like in pain while Addison and Tom are together, because that means Addison and Ben can't be together. And I really ship Addison and Ben. So when the wedding was called off, I was thinking in my head, it was weird. At the same time, I was thinking the characters in the story, but also real life, we have 3 more episodes to go. So hopefully they can get back together. But I teared up and I was like, yeah, she's making the right decision. He's a nice guy, but he's wrong for you all along. And I can't wait for you to get back with Ben. And I still ship Hannah and Ben too, which is crazy. But I started to like have happy tears. And I love this episode that they were able to say, you know what, we're going to do Goonies, we're going to do Raiders of the Lost Ark, we're going to do a mystery. And yes, it's a TV episode, not a movie budget. And they have 8 days and not, 6 months to film it. I think they did pretty damn good considering.
Oh, yeah.
So way kudos to everybody involved on the team in every capacity, because I think with such short time, they did such a great job. So I'm going to go ahead and give this 5 out of 5 hand link flashlights, because I think this is the first episode where Addison was using the hand link as a flashlight. And I really enjoyed seeing her go like this and leading Ben around. And I just love that. So I'm going to give it 5. Christina, where can people find you?
You can find me. I'm 1/3 of the Project Quantum Leap, the podcast show. You can find us at pqlpodcast.com. That's our link tree. Has anywhere you want to find us: Facebook, Instagram, not Twitter. But yeah, so that's our link tree. It's got everything there.
Yeah. And we'd love to have you and your co-hosts join us on another episode sometime soon as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Brian, where can people find you?
The same place you can find me from the last 24 years, Al's Place Quantum Leap fan site. And we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and our new forums.
Were my posts accepted, approved?
Of course.
Oh, cool. I was waiting on that. So thank you so much, Christina, for joining us. And thank you again, Brian. As I mentioned earlier, Christopher and John Irons are on assignment on Broadway in New York City. They're going to see the live musical with Scott Bakula called The Connector. And graciously, they gave us tickets for our group to go see it. I was originally supposed to go see it, but I didn't get to. Sad face. Prior contractual obligations. But I'm glad that John Irons is going to be there. Christopher D. Philippus is going to be there. Suzanne Smiley from our original podcast days is going to be there. And they're going to have a good time. So hopefully we get some good information out of that. So be on the lookout for that. And I want to thank them for going to New York City for me in my stead. And hopefully next time I'll get to see it. Oh, and they're getting to see Back to the Future, the musical, afterwards. So it's going to be a hell of a night.
Awesome.
It was supposed to be me and you, Brian. Oh, well. And Serenity.
Next time.
But things happen. All right. But I'm glad somebody's enjoying it. For the Quantum Leap podcast, Quantum Leap After Show, I'm Albie.
I'm Brian.
I'm Christina.
And I am Hayden from Terra Australis.
And we'll see you next time.